Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting Tuesday, September 27th at 1 p.m. Due to COVID, we had to reschedule our meeting to be over Zoom, so please bear with us. And it's very hard to talk to when you have problems, so I'll do the land acknowledgement. We respectively acknowledge that the township of Asphodel-Norwood is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Calderville, Scugog Island, Roma, Beausoleil, Georgina Islands First Nations. And we respectively acknowledge that the Williams Treaties First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. Thank you. So I'll call this meeting to order at this time, and I will just say that Councillor Archer has given his regrets for today. We have a full complement of council with us other than Wilburn Archer, and we have several staff with us for today. We have quite an agenda, and we also have a public meeting today at 2 p.m. So at this time, then I'll ask council for a moment of silent reflection, please, so we may reflect upon our duties of today. Thank you. I'll ask council if there's any declaration of any pecuniary interest at this time or at time of subject. Seeing no hands, thank you. Then I'm looking for a motion for the approval of the agenda for today, September 27th, to be approved as circulated, please. Motion by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor War. All in favor? That's carried, thank you. Looking for a motion then for the approval of the minutes for the council meeting minutes of August 23rd and the special meeting minutes of the September 8th, and the recommendation that we adopt them as presented, please. Deputy Mayor Burt, Councillor War, any discussion? All in favor? Oh, sorry. I guess it would be in minutes arising from the minutes anyways, I'm sorry. So all in favor? That's carried, thank you. Now, is there any business arising from the minutes? Councillor Ward, please.
Yes, I just wanted to mention one thing, and I was talking about noxious weeds and the invasive weeds in our community at the last meeting. And for some reason, even though I do find the invasive weeds obnoxious, it's noxious. And I know that I said on 3 occasions obnoxious, not noxious. So I wanted to thank staff for clearly knowing what I was talking about. It's noxious, not obnoxious. And I just wanted to clarify that for anyone that may have watched the previous council YouTube and was laughing at me. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor Ward. We'll put that in the minutes, I'm sure. So, okay, consent agenda. Then we have C1, C2, C3, R1, and then the Asphodel-Norwood Public Library Board minute meetings of October the 12th. Need a motion to accept as circulated. Okay, Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor War. Sorry. Yep. All right. Anything out of these that we'd like to discuss? Councillor War, please.
Yes, I just wanted to talk a little bit about R1 and maybe get a little bit more background and discussion about the Alma Street pedestrian bridge. I was just wondering how long ago that the actual bridge itself, not the pedestrian bridge, was, you know, I know that there was construction there not that long ago. And I was also wondering when this pedestrian bridge is going to be done, about any erosion control that may be mitigated south of the bridge where, you know, some of the silt has now built up. And so those were 2 of my questions about that, about this report.
Go ahead, whoever would like to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, I can answer those questions. So The question about when the bridge was constructed, or I guess the work that was previously done there was done on the roadway bridge, not the pedestrian bridge. And I think that was done about 2006 or 2008, somewhere in there. And the pedestrian bridge itself, the actual year of construction, I'm not 100% sure on, but I know it dates back to the mid 1800s, somewhere in that area. And as far as the erosion control, that will all be part of the design package and the tendering package when it goes out to construction. So any erosion control mitigation that's required will be in the construction tender package, and it will be their responsibility to install it and make sure it's all there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good question. Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Thank you. This is just a quick question for the Public Library Board minutes. Those minutes are from almost a year ago, October 12th, 2021. So were those obvious? I would assume they were caught through the interim audit process, that those were missing, and I just wanted to confirm that.
Yes, that is correct. So we had to, during the interim audit, we had to go back to the library board and ask to receive copies of all of their minutes, and we to ensure that all of the minutes that have been approved have been circulated to council. We are still waiting for them to be signed and executed, because as of right now, although I think you probably have noticed that they remain unsigned, but we did go back and check before they came to council to ensure there's at least a motion from the library board approving the minutes before they came to council. So the board has received them and has approved them. They have yet to sign them. So we've done our due diligence and check boxes on our end, and we've just asked that they get forwarded to us a little bit sooner, and that they get uploaded to the website, because I don't believe they're uploaded there either. On the library board website, we couldn't find them there, so we had to go directly searching for them. So, but moving forward, I don't think it's going to be a concern.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, Councilor. You had your hand up, sir.
Yeah, I'm just going back to R1 if I can. Peter, just a couple quick questions. When that construction does happen on the Alma Street Bridge, will it be closure of Alma Street, or will it be single lane open? So that's question one. And secondly is, do you have any idea how long that construction would be?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So there isn't any plans right now to have any road closures. There may need to be a lane closure just when they set the bridge or parts of it, but that would be minimal, or at least that would be my expectation. So we are not anticipating any road closures for Alma Street during construction. The anticipated length, I would expect it would be in the range of a month to 2 months, somewhere in there.
So Peter, this, just if I can ask a just follow-up question, Mayor. So this is going to be a bridge similar to what we've done up at the transfer station, kind of like a one-piece bridge brought there?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, the base of it will be, but because the railings have been designated to have some heritage value, they will be replicated. So I suspect that will be something that will be fabricated on site, or at least the majority of it. So it'll kind of be done in 2 stages.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions on the consent agenda? Seeing no hands, and it's been motioned and seconded. All in favor then, please? And that's carried. Thank you. There's no delegations and presentations today. Thank you. So R2 then would be Kyle Beacock. He's our wastewater operations manager, and this is to do with results for the RFP 2022-05 for the Norwood standpipe upgrades, sir.
Good afternoon, through your mayor. So we're coming to you with a recommendation for RFP 2022-05 for professional engineering services required for the design and contract administration of the new standpipe and the upgrades to the water treatment plant that will come with that. And further, that the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood awards RFP 2022-05 to Greer Galloway Consulting Engineers in the amount of $173,724.67. A little bit of background here in discussion. So in 2018, we had an internal inspection of the existing standpipe. At that time, it was recommended that we do a further cleaning of the bottom for better inspection, that we install cathodic protection as there was none, to install a mixing system, and basically to redo some sealing and some stuff inside on the sheet edges and the bolt heads. This was quite a job. It involved actually taking the standpipe right out of service, so some valves could be replaced, setting up basically a pressurized system for the village, organizing additional storage for buffer for water main breaks or for fire flow. And so it was going to be a significant time and significant cost to the water capital budget. At that time, township staff began planning the procurement process for engineering services for this job, with work slated to kind of occur over the 2019 and 2020 budgets. Kind of at the same time, township was working with Engage Engineering to complete the existing and future conditions review. At that time, it was becoming known that the standpipe was deficient actually for storage capacity for the existing population and had no residual capacity for future growth. So shortly after this, the federal and provincial governments announced the ICIP green funding, and township staff decided to use this opportunity to basically go after a new standpipe to address these issues. We devoted significant time. Township council and staff strongly advocated for the project, and we were rewarded with a successful application to that stream of funding, which was great news for the community. So this led into the Schedule B Class EA for the project, which was a requirement under the EA process. So this consisted of hydraulic modeling for the village, kind of to get an idea of system pressures. It evaluated different alternative solutions for locations for standpipes or elevated towers or underground storage, some preliminary costing for those solutions. And then there was a public and stakeholder review and consultation period as part of that EA process. So that was all kind of completed in February 2022, and a report was brought to council outlining that process and the recommended solution for potable water storage for the village at that time. The recommended solution was to go with another standpipe, about 3,000 meters cubed of usable water storage, and that would also increase our hydraulic grade line 13 meters. So giving us a significant pressure increase as well throughout the distribution system. So once we got this going, the next logical step was to release the RFP for professional engineering services for the design and contract for the new standpipe and for the upgrades to the treatment system that are going to be required to go along with that. We received 2 proposals for this RFP. One was JL Richards, who completed the EA, and Greer Galloway out of Belleville. These proposals were both evaluated using a scoring matrix. So we have a scoring matrix that 2 individual employees of the township score on their own. So there's no kind of conflict there. And we based that on project team, project understanding, implementation, experience and qualifications of the people working on the project, and some references. So once we went through and scored those, based on the costs and the technical proposals, the scoring, and the references that the township was able to reach out, we decided that RFP 2022-05 should be awarded to Greer Galloway Consulting Engineers, and we're looking for council to award the project to them. So this approximately $2.9 million project, it's being funded under the federal and provincial governments for the ICIP green funding. We're on the hook for about 26.7%, which will be $770,000. It's anticipated that this portion will be funded through development charges. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them now.
Kyle, thank you. Councillor Ford, please.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Kyle, thank you for the report. It is a good news story, but I have about 3 questions, or I can do them one and let somebody else take a question, however you'd like to do it. My first question is, when you were taking the sediment out, just so perhaps some of the residents that may be watching this, when all that sediment was found in the existing standpipe, how much was in there, like to get down? Was there a significant amount that had, accumulated in the bottom of that standpipe? And the second part, I was just wondering if the township had worked with Greer Galloway before. And I have another one, but I'll let somebody else take a question after that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll address through your mayor. I'll address this first question with the sediment in the standpipe. It was hard to determine exactly how much was in there, as there was no real way of measuring. When they did the inspection, it was done with the ROV, so they actually send like a remote camera in. So we could see like some of the bolt heads on the floor, so it's assuming that it was maybe 1.5 inches or so or deep, but it didn't allow us to completely see the floor of the standpipe. So that's why it was recommended to take that out. We haven't removed it yet. It's kind of, there is no active mixing in the standpipe. So unless it's disturbed, it doesn't really move. It's kind of there. So until we are able to, you have to basically empty the standpipe and isolate it in order, obviously, to get that out. Your second question with regards to whether we had worked with Greer Galloway or not. No, the township hasn't. They did engineer phase 1 of Norwood Park. They had some part in that. Staff did reach out to a couple adjacent municipalities that had worked with them on similar projects. And we actually got rave references about them, which kind of went into the scoring matrix as well.
Go ahead, Councilor Ward.
Thanks. Just to follow up to that. So the proposed cost to the water users, the $770,000 that would be coming out of DC charges. If there is an overage, and this is probably directed more to our CAO, would we have to take out a debenture? If like, what would the process be if this project does go over budget?
Go ahead, Candace.
Thank you, Councilor Mayor, through you. If the project was to tender over budget, then the difference would continue to be pulled from the DC charges until that fund was depleted. If that fund was depleted, then a recommendation would come back to council. I would suspect at that time to utilize the water reserve fund that's currently sitting in place. Ideally, though, we would hope that the development charges are going to be able to cover the vast majority. There is a concern. Obviously, we do not know until the project is tendered what the final dollar amount is going to be. So once a construction tender is released, that value of that tender and any financing or funding options will be brought back to council for a decision. So today's decision actually may be slightly premature to have that conversation based on not knowing what the construction tender is going to be. Obviously, the DC fund is a revolving fund depending on other work that's happening to support development, but the goal will be that I guarantee you that the taxpayers will not pay for anything to do with this project. But the goal is also for the existing water user base to not also fund anything in regards to this project. So that is the ultimate goal, but any funding recommendations will come forward when the recommendation of the construction contractor and the tendering results are brought forward to council from staff. But I would like to just circle back, if I can, Mayor, on the Greer Galloway comment. The township, the water wastewater department has not utilized Greer Galloway in regards to any work there, but the roads department in the environmental services department through the landfill and transfer station has utilized Greer Galloway for some engineering services with successful results. It was a much smaller scope of work, but we did utilize that company as a whole, albeit different professionals were on the file from that company. But the references that we did check out came back with glowing recommendations for projects of similar nature. So it wasn't that these municipalities that we spoke to had completed, well, for instance, transfer station type work or environmental type work. They were actually standpipe projects that they actually completed with Greer Galloway. So it was very comparable. And the manager of water and wastewater was able to have in-depth conversations with those municipalities and ask the tough questions in order to ensure that our interests are going to be taken care of. That said, you go in with the best intentions, but we will keep council obviously abreast if any issues arise.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Burt, you had your hand up, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you for the very detailed report. And yeah, we're very fortunate to receive that funding through ICIP. I know staff and certainly the mayor worked hard to get that through at the upper levels of government. I just had one kind of a red flag when I read it, and certainly the difference of 130,000 between the price range of the two bids, and when you had weighed the technical proposals, did you notice a big gap between those technical proposals of the two companies, between Greer Galloway and JL Richards? I just thought it was a bit of a red flag to have such a wide range in the financial quote coming back between the two companies.
Go ahead, whoever
Yep.
wants to answer that one.
Through your mayor. Yeah, no, when we scored the technical proposals, they both addressed what was required of the RFP. JL Richards, they do have some significantly higher hourly rates for their professionals. Also, they had put in some geotech work that seemed over and above what was required. And when staff reached out to Grey Terrio, they confirmed that. But even when that was removed, there was still quite a significant difference between the two RFPs. So yeah, essentially, no, I mean, we had the same red flags. It's like, it's almost more challenging when you get two that are so far apart, because you're like, what's missing? Who's missing? You know, somebody's missing something. But it didn't appear to be the case. Yeah, as Candace said, based on the references as well, it sounds like this is the prudent decision.
Mayor, I'll just add, one of the key things also is the daily inspection rate. So obviously we need to have the engineer and the consulting representative on site for certain portions of the work to ensure that they can place their engineering stamp on it at the end of the day and state that it is built based on how it needs to be built. It was over twice the amount for a daily rate. So the other issue is that's great. The scoring of the RFP and the pricing of the RFP, obviously there was a vast financial difference. But the other concern is as you get into construction, you never know what you're going to unearth as you start through the project itself. And one of the biggest things we always look at is a daily inspection rate, because if we need to have a consulting engineer on site above and beyond what we stated in the RFP, just based on what construction is giving us, then we need that's an extra to the contract. So if we need to have an inspector on site for an extra week or an extra 2 weeks, it was like 120% more to go with JL Richards and Greer Galloway. So from a daily inspection rate as well was also a bit of a red flag for us. We're comfortable. I think a lot of it is based on overhead and the sheer size of the companies as well. JL Richards has multiple offices in multiple cities. Obviously, just much larger firm than Greer Galloway. That said, we're going to have to keep a close eye on any change orders or any scope of work change to ensure that we can keep those in check.
Good. Thank you very much. And it's certainly better, I guess, seeing two companies come in somewhat further apart than just getting a single bid, because we never like to see that, especially on a project this large. So thank you for the answers to that question.
Anyone else have any questions at this time? Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, just through you, Mayor, and it's basically Deputy Mayor Burt asked the same question I had, just trying to get a little better understanding of the difference between the two tenders, and feel very comfortable in the responses that's been provided by Kyle and Candace. So thank you very much.
It almost sounded like a motion.
Good. I will make that a motion.
Okay. So then they were to receive this report, and further that the Township of Asphodel-Norwood awards this to Greer Galloway for the 173,724.67.
Yeah.
Councillor Walsh.
Yep.
Seconded by Councillor War. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, R3 then. Ed Whitmore, our Chief Building Official Planning Coordinator. Always a pleasure, Ed. And this is regarding consent B 108-22. Gervin, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, this consent application B-108-22 has been made by Mr. Glenn Gervin. The consent application is applicable to lands described as 2249 Asphodel 10th line, municipal roll number 1501-010-003-19400. And that's in concession 10 and part lot 16 in the township of Asphodel-Norwood. As per the notice of application for consent, the purpose of this application is to allow a severance of a parcel of land having frontage of approximately 91.4 meters, which is 300 feet, and an area of approximately 0.83 hectares, which is about 2.06 acres. And the effect of the application is to create a new residential lot. The retained lands will have a frontage of approximately 435 meters, which is 1,427 feet on Asphodel 10th line. And the lot area of approximately 39.7 hectares, which is 98.1 acres. And the retained lands, they meet the minimum frontage and area requirements set out in the township zoning bylaw. The severed portion is currently zoned rural zone and will be required, if passed by county council or the county planning department. If it's passed, they'll be required to rezone it to the satisfaction of the township, which will be rural residential. And so we have reviewed the county and township official plans, township zoning bylaw, the provincial plans like the provincial policy statement, the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe policies, notice of application for the consent, and the consent application itself. And we've attached the notice of application for consent. We've attached the consent application itself, and then the municipal appraisal form is also attached. And so I'll go through the municipal appraisal form. If if the council recommends that this consent application be approved, then our condition would be to rezone the severed parcel to the satisfaction of the municipality. No other conditions are required. For the official plan, this application conforms to the official plan. The proposed use is a residential use, and the land use designation is rural and environmental constraints. The proposed use is permitted. And the retained parcel, the proposed use is residential. The land use designation is the same, rural and environmental constraints. The proposed use is a permitted one. And the zoning bylaw, so a rezoning is required for the severed part, and a rezoning is not required for the retained parcel. The existing zoning of the retained is rural and environmental protection. And the recommended zoning of the retained would not change at all. It'll still remain rural and environmental protection. And if the recommended zoning for the severed parcel would just be a straight rural residential, no exceptions needed. And that's it. I can answer any questions on this one.
Thank you, Ed. Council, any questions at this time? Councilor Ward, please.
Yes, through you, Mayor, to Ed. Just a couple of questions. There's never been any severances from this farm before. I gather this is the first time that they've asked for a severance. And the second question I have, Do you feel that there's any problems with sight lines for coming out of driveways, and how do you, deal with that, or is that done at a later date?
Through you, Mayor. What was your first question? Sorry.
If this was the first severance off that
Yes.
farm allotment?
Yes, through you, Mayor. This is the first severance. There's no record of any other severance or applications been put forward. And with the sight lines, I've had a discussion with Peter, our roads manager, and he's had a discussion with Mr. Gervin as well to make sure that there'd be no issues with this severance or the following one coming up, the next report.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I just more a comment than a question. Even though this isn't right in the settlement area, it is very close. And also, I think it's important to note that this is already designated rural. It is not agricultural land, which some people may think it is. Certainly, if it was agricultural, it would be a completely different story with the report coming to council. So I think that's important to note for both this one and the following one. And my other half of the question was answered through the entrance permit, which Councillor Ward just asked. So thank you.
Great. More questions, anyone? Comments? Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, and maybe this one relates more to the R4, but both entrances will be off of the 10th line, Ed?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Yes, they will. Both
Okay.
entrances will be off the 10th line.
Okay, so not coming off the county road.
Right.
Any follow-up questions? Anyone? All right, seeing no hands, then the recommendation is that we receive this consent B 108-22 Gervin for information, and that we direct then the staff to provide the municipal appraisal form to the County of Peterborough Land Division. Motioned by Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Any other discussion on the motion? And then that's carried. Thank you. Okay, next, Ed, would be R4. It's almost the same idea. Consent B 109-22, this one, slash Gervin, and the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. This application, consent B 109-22, has been made by Mr. Glenn Gervin. The consent application applies to 2249 Asphodel 10th line, municipal roll number 1501-010-003-19400, and it's concession 10, and it's part lot 16 in the township of Asphodel-Norwood. And as per the notice of application for consent, the purpose of this application is to sever a parcel of land having frontage of approximately 60.96 meters, which is 200 feet this time, and an area of approximately 0.557 hectares, which is about 1.37 acres. So the difference between this lot, B109-22 and B-108-22 is the first lot was 300 by 300, and this one is 200 by 300. 200 feet by 300 feet. And the 200 feet is on the 10th line. That's the frontage. So the effect of the application is to create a new residential lot, and everything is exactly the same with the retained parcel having approximately 435 meters. That's 1,427 feet of frontage on the 10th line in an area of 39.7 hectares, 98.1 acres. That area and that frontage is with both lots areas and both lot frontages being reduced. So just in case you were wondering. So the retained lands will meet frontage and they meet the township zoning requirements. The severed lot will be required to be rezoned to rural residential, and the municipal appraisal form that is attached just states the exact same thing, that there's no change required for the retained parcel of land. And if approved, they will need to rezone the severed parcel to rural residential. They won't need any exceptions or anything. It complies with all the rules and the regs out there. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ed. Deputy Mayor Burke this time, please.
Just a quick question. Can you remind us for the MDS, the minimum distance separation, what is the minimum from a barn? And it could be, you know, the owner's barn or neighboring barn. What is the minimum distance for that?
It has to be calculated depending on the size of the barn and the number of barns and how many animal units that the barns are capable of housing, and also to do with the manure storage, whether it's solid or liquid, or whether it's covered or not covered. And so as far as we can tell, a small area of the MDS will go into the one corner of B-108-22 at the very north east edge corner. And Mr. Mudd at the county has advised that that's totally permissible because the 7/8 of the lot is outside of the MDS arc. So, and no other barns in the entire area are even close as far as the MDS arcs go.
Okay, and we will, as this proceeds, we will see those documents to come in the future when we get the reports through the county. Is that correct?
We can attach the MDS calculations or the data sheets with it when we do the zoning bylaw amendment to change them to rural residential if you wish.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Rohr, I see your hand, please.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor. Just a comment. These are two really nice sized lots. And I was just as a reminder for everyone, what is the minimum size lot in a rural residential that's required? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I was just curious if anyone is looking, you know, watching, that might be a question they're asking as well.
Through you, Mayor. I'm ready for you, Paula. The minimum size of a lot is 0.4 acres or hectares, sorry. And that's 0.98 acres.
Yeah.
And the minimum frontage is 30 meters, which is about 100 feet.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
There's just no catching this staff. They're just right on the ball all the time, right?
Hope so.
Just a question, I guess, from myself, Ed. Once this gets approved and goes to county, then what's the turnaround time from county? Is the exception, or what will we expect for time, say, back for Mr. Gervin to get the approvals from county? Any idea?
I think once they've received comments from the health unit and from the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority and the County Roads Department, it should be a fairly quick turnaround. Staff should be able to approve this because there's no controversy.
That's the key word right there. There's really no issues with the properties, and things go a little smoother like they always have in the past, right? So,
Yes,
yeah, thanks for that.
you're welcome.
Okay, any other questions or comments, concerns from council? All right, so the recommendation then for this consent B-109-22 Gervin is for information, and that then we direct the staff to provide the municipal appraisal form to the County of Peterborough Land Division. Motion by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor Rohr. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, R5, Ed Whitmore again, Chief Building Official Planning Coordinator. This is regarding consent B-85-22/Hancock. As soon as your
Yes.
files are ready, Ed, help yourself.
Yes, this application for consent B-85-22. The owner's last name is Hancock, and it has been made by EcoView Consulting Services, Inc. On May 10th, 2022, Council of Township of Asphodel-Norwood, we recommended support of an official plan amendment number 69, and that was to allow the severance application to proceed. The consent application is applicable to lands described as 44 Albine Street, and it's municipal roll number 1501-010-003-08215. It's concession 8 and concession 9, part lots 18 and part lot 19 in the township of Asphodel-Norwood. As per the notice of application for consent, this will allow the severance of a parcel of land having frontage of about 23.8 meters, which is a little over 78 feet, and an area of approximately 0.12 hectares, which is 0.30 acres. This is in the settlement area, so the frontage and the area is permitted to be smaller than in the rural area. So the effect of the application will be to create a new residential lot. The retained lands will have lot frontage of approximately 95 meters, which is 313 feet, and a lot frontage of approximately, or a lot area, excuse me, of approximately 0.50 hectares, and that's about 1.24 acres. The retained lands, they meet the minimum frontage and area requirements set out in the township zoning bylaw. The new severed portion is currently residential 1 zone and requires no change for the new residential lot. So we've reviewed the county and township official plans, the township zoning bylaw, the provincial policy statement, the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe policies, the notice of the application and the consent application itself. We attached the notice of the application, the consent application, and the municipal appraisal form. And when we go to the municipal appraisal form, you can see that there are, if approved or we recommend approval, there are no township recommendations or conditions attached because it's already zoned appropriately and it's already sized appropriately. There's no exceptions required for it. The proposed use is residential in the official plan, and the land use designation is residential, so it complies. The retained parcel, the use is residential, the land use designation is residential, so it complies with all the official plan requirements. The zoning is not required to be changed. And everything is good. It's all R1 zone, so that's it. If there's questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ed. That's pretty straightforward too. Thank you. Any questions, council, at this time? Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Just a one quick question, Ed. So in this case, because there's no additional changes, once this goes to county, if it's approved today, it won't come back to us because there's nothing else that we need to do with this particular application, correct?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, that's correct. Unless a new owner or person would like to do something that's not permitted in the zoning, then we would require a zoning bylaw amendment. But it's my understanding that it will be the permitted uses are for dwellings or single detached or semi-detached, and that would be permitted, and no further zoning is required.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? I just have one other comment, I guess, Ed, just for clarification for myself. When would somebody get it resurveyed then, or restaked to have that lot set out proper? After everything's accepted, or how's that work?
Yes, when the county planning department, when they approve the severance, they will approve it with conditions. So we won't have any municipal or township conditions, but they will have their own conditions of having to provide an up-to-date survey, and they'll have to provide it in a way that's acceptable to the county. The county will always send that survey to the township and ask us, are you satisfied with this survey? I respond back and say, if it meets all the minimum requirements like this, then yes. And then they have to pay additional fees and register it and do that sort of thing. But yeah, survey will be required.
Pretty well on all of them anyways.
Yes, on every severance, no matter what.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Ed, for that. No other questions from council then. So then I'll ask for a motion then that the recommendations that we accept this report for consent B85-22 Hancock for information, and then that we direct the staff to provide the municipal appraisal form to the County of Peterborough Land Division. Motion by Councillor War, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. Any other discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, Peter, you're back on the hook again. Peter Deshane, our Manager of Public Works and Environmental Services, and this is regarding result tenders of the 2022-08 Public Works Building LED lighting upgrade.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. So a little bit of background about this report. On September 19th, 2022 at 12 noon, bids were opened for the tender number 2022-08 Public Works Building LED lighting upgrades. The tender included upgrading of all the lighting in the Public Works building to LED lights and fixtures, both interior and exterior. The purpose of the upgrade is to improve efficiency and to realize energy cost savings. The township is also eligible for a provincial Save on Energy SOE cash incentive with this upgrade. An engineering report was completed by A1 Lighting previously in 2020 that indicated the Save on Energy cash incentive would realize a saving, or would realize an incentive of $6,458 if we do the LED lighting upgrade. The tender requested pricing on the installation of, also requested pricing on the installation of motion sensor switches on the lighting for all office rooms and the shop spaces on a provisional basis to allow the opportunity to treat this as an extra item to the contract, meaning that council could award the tender for the lighting upgrades with or without the provisional item. And we would remain in compliance with procurement practices. There was one submission received, and that was received by Bernie Walsh Electrical Inc. Including the provisional items, the tender amount was $28,670 plus HST. And excluding the provisional items, it was $22,954.67. It is expected that the work will be completed by December 30th, 2022. The 2022 capital budget included $30,000 for the tendered scope of work. The tender amount was $28,670 plus HST. And with the net HST rebate of $504.92, the total amount will be $29,174.59. So in conclusion, the bid submitted by Bernie Walsh Electrical Inc. met the required specifications of the tender. The tender amount net of the HST rebate is within the 2022 capital budget for the Public Works Department. The upgrade to the lighting at the Public Works building was an identified project under the one-time efficiency funding received from the provincial government in 2019. The funding for this project was set aside in a reserve and will be utilized when the expense is incurred. So our recommendation is that the council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood receives this report regarding the results of tender number 2022-08 for the Public Works Building LED lighting upgrade for information, and further that the council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood authorizes the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement between Bernie Walsh Electrical Inc. and the Township of Asphodel-Norwood for the Public Works Building LED lighting upgrades in the amount of $28,679.86 plus HST. Any questions?
No, but thank you for reading that off for us. Councillor War, is that a question or a motion?
Well, maybe both. Thank you, through you, Mayor, and a question to Peter. I guess one thing, it was good that we were able to set aside that one-time funding and being able to use it now, because 2019, that's a while ago that we were finally getting this project finished. Do we have any expectation of what savings would be expected on a yearly basis by changing to this? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but is there any indication that it's a 20% savings per year, or what what would we recoup by doing this?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So in the report that was submitted by A1 Lighting, they did indicate the savings in there, and I believe from memory, it was 15 to 20% savings on average per annum. And that really depends, obviously, on how much the lights are on or off. But I think we may see that a little bit higher with these motion sensors, because lights won't be left on and that sort of thing. If no one's in the room, the lights won't be on.
Yep. And thank you.
Yeah, it just slipped my mind. I do remember that we mentioned this before, that we should make a motion on the discussion before we have discussion. So we have a motion then to accept this report as it was described first. Motion by Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor War. Thank you. And now, any more discussion, please? I'm sorry for that. Deputy Mayor Burt, thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, when it comes to the provisional items, I would certainly hope that we could include those provisional items, because I think having the sensors is important when people are coming in and out. I think we will realize more savings from having those included versus excluding them. So that would be certainly, it may be in the motion, I'm not sure, but to see the provisional items included as well.
Any other discussions, comments? Candace, I seen your hand, please.
Yeah, so just to clarify, yes, the motion, because the total amount that staff is asking for council's award does include the provisional items. I would also just like to clarify that the project wasn't completed in 2020. So we received the funding in the fourth quarter of 2019, which would have meant that it should have been a 2020 project, which it was slated in 2020 and 2021. But due to COVID-19, it was derailed, largely in part due to supply of fixtures and what we actually require to retrofit this building. So we are hopeful that we are in a position now that we have tendered the project that the supply will be available in order to get the turnaround done in a timely fashion. We will let council know when the project is completed. We will also include in our annual energy report any savings that we will realize. I would like to see it go through a 12-month cycle, just to take a look at what we're going to see in the summer months versus the winter months, and probably report in the first quarter of 2024 any savings that are realized once we get through 12 months. I think month over month, it's going to be too challenging to actually realize a pattern and actually be able to accurately report back to council. So I'm staff's plan, unless council would like to see something different, and if so, please advise. But the plan was to see first quarter of 2024. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, concerns on the motion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? And that's carried. Well, thank you, Peter, and send our compliments on to you, yourself and the staff for doing such a good job around our township. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we still have some time. R7, Candace. This is regarding, Candace is our CAO clerk treasurer. This is regarding our 2023 draft building budget, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. So it is that time of year again, come September, where council is going to start to see at each council meeting a draft departmental report with a breakdown of each general ledger listing. With that report, in order to allow council the opportunity to ask staff any questions or to provide any direction where we're headed by department for the budget before you see it as a complete package for adoption. Well, you'll see it as a full whole late November, and then for adoption in December if we are able to move forward with the current schedule. That said, the draft 2023 building department continues to propose a net zero impact to the tax base. This department is 100% self-funded. That does include the staffing that is included within the department. We have seen that department grow, obviously, from 10 years ago versus today. You will see 2 more employees within that department in order to support the additional building permit activity, obviously the inspection activity that goes along with that in the building department. It is completely self-funded, which means that anything to do, any expense incurred in regards to the building department, from office supplies, mileage, training, conferences, computers, wages, payroll costs, everything is fully funded by the building permit revenue that is brought in by the activity in that department. You will see that on an annual basis, we continue to allocate from reserves to fund the building department. It currently has I guess a working reserve of approximately $750,000 under the Ontario Building Code. That reserve needs to stay in place for building activity. So it is to fund future years if there is an operating deficit that you pull from that reserve in order to fund it. We haven't seen that, although we budget it each year. We haven't seen a transfer from. We always see a transfer to, which means if there is a deficit, it works the exact same way if there is a surplus. So if there's an operational surplus within that department, that surplus is allocated back to an operational reserve in order to remain compliant. In the last 6 years, we've seen nothing but that reserve continue to grow, and I suspect that will be the case as long as we continue to see the increase in growth in building activities within the township borders. We are anticipating in 2023 to see the Norwood Park Phase 4 come online. That you'll see that in the budget. That is where the bulk of the permit revenue we suspect will come from, as it will be looking for permit revenue. The other developments that have been proposed based on what they need to go through as far as public meetings or official plan amendments, zoning bylaw amendments, etc. It's hard to predict as to whether they will actually be to the stage of drawing building permits and submitting applications. So we have not included anything outside of Norwood Park Phase 4 and any other annual building permits we see, such as maybe for, the houses that we see outside of the subdivisions or garages, decks, etc. We didn't include any of that in the 2023 draft building budget. Outside of that, you can see in there that we will be hiring a new inspector. So based on not an additional inspector, just let me clarify that is not, we're not adding a second one. It is a replacement, but we do need to replace the computer for that person. So you see that included in the budget. Pretty standard. We're starting simple here. So I will take any questions from council that you may have in regards to the building budget itself.
Okay, any questions, comments, concerns? Deputy Mayor Burt.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just one question. You have the Keystone City Reporter licenses. Are you finding your efficiencies in the paperless system, and how are you finding residents accepting those paperless systems? Not so much a budget question, but more of an operational question within that budget.
Well, for efficiencies wise, from staff perspective, paperless inspections obviously is much more efficient, and it's more from a document file management perspective where it's more efficient. So you can log on to the software and pull up any historical information from inspection documents to permit drawings, renewals, all of that. It's at our fingertips versus having to go pull paper files. That said, obviously there's a portal that has been established for residents to be able to upload their documents and applications to the portal directly. That's been a slower uptake. But we ensure on the staffing level that all of the documents and applications that come in still go through the portal so that they're uploaded to our software, even if we have to assist the residents to do it. Customer service in this department has always been paramount and continues to be that way. So if that ensures that the residents need to have an extra helping hand to utilize these portals, then that's what happens. And I suspect that'll continue. I do not foresee this department going back to full paper. I don't really see efficiencies there. So definitely from an inspection standpoint, we're still working out some kinks in regards to reporting and how this software marries up to financial software. We're working out some kinks like you do with any new process added to any operational department. But all in all, things are going well for staff and residents.
Good, thank you. And really, when you look at the software expense of around $5,000, that for what that software does, it doesn't seem like a huge expense when you look at other software applications. That's just a comment. Thank you.
Exactly. And that is all the software applications for that department. So that goes outside of the inspection software as well. So that's each department pays for a component of the financial Keystone software. So that gets divvied up, that licensing amongst all of the departments. Obviously, administration, which is the finance and tax collection department, takes the biggest hit for accounts payables, receivables, animal licensing, etc. But the building department does also take into account some of the financial software because it is utilized by the department as well. But all in all, this does include like full support. So from a city reporter, so we are able to kind of pick up the phone and get their support when it comes to any sort of glitches or training, that sort of thing. So it's a full complement software that way, and that's included in the licensing.
Okay, thank you. Is there more questions on this topic? If there is, then I'll need a motion then to suspend council at this time so we can go into our public meeting for 2 o'clock then. Okay, I need a motion then by Councillor War to suspend council, enter into our public meeting, and seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, thank you. So now we're into our public meeting then, and it's today, Tuesday, September 27th, 2022, and the time is actually 2:01 at this time. I'll read the land acknowledgement for this public meeting. We respectively acknowledge that the Township of Asphodel-Norwood is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Islands First Nations. We respectively acknowledge that the Williams Treaties First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. Thank you. And I'll ask that there's no declaration of any pecuniary interest in this, and approval of the agenda, please. Councillor Walsh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. So Ed, the floor is yours, sir, on this public meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So the notification, the combined notice of complete application and notice of this public meeting concerning the proposed zoning bylaw amendment was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act to all the required agencies, to the neighboring area properties within 120 meters of the subject site. The notification was also posted on the Township of Asphodel-Norwood website for the general public, and we also posted the notice on the subject site itself. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment ZBLA-05-2022 rezones a portion of the subject lands located at 105 County Road 40 in Norwood from residential 1 zone to the residential 3 exception 4 holding R3-4 bracket H zone, and to residential 3 exception 5 holding R3-5H bracket H zone. The rezoning is required as a condition of the consent for Peterborough County Land Division files B-12-22 and B-13-22. So this zoning, we will be permitting residential apartments or condominium units or row house on each of the severed parcels. The northerly parcel, the R3-4 bracket H property, has a reduced minimum lot frontage requirement of 25 meters or 225 meters, and that's about 82 feet. Normally a property for apartments and condominium units, they need 30 meters of frontage, and this will have 25 meters of frontage, so slightly less frontage on County Road 40. It meets all the other requirements of the zoning bylaw. And same with the R3-5 bracket H. It meets all of the requirements and the frontage requirements as well. When I go to the, I better read the, if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Asphodel-Norwood before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood to the Ontario Land Tribunal. And if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Asphodel-Norwood before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. If a person wishes to be notified of the decision for any or all applications, the person must make written request to the Township of Asphodel-Norwood, voting file number ZBLA-05-2022. I will go into my report a little bit. I said the zoning bylaw application is applicable to lands described as 105 County Road 40. It's municipal roll number 150101000306300, and that's concession 8 and 9, part lots 18 and 19 in the Township of Asphodel-Norwood. And I'll just repeat again, the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone a portion of the subject lands from residential 1 zone, which is R1 zone, to residential 3 exception 4 holding R3-4 bracket H zone, and residential 3 exception 5 holding R3-5 bracket H zone. The retained portion of the subject lands will remain as is, being residential 1 zone, environmental protection zone, and a flood fringe overlay, flood fringe area overlay as well. So there's no change to the retained lands. The applications for consent B-12-22 and B-13-22 were submitted by Maurice Knight. Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood recommended approval of both consent applications on March 8th, 2022. And the County of Peterborough Land Division approved the consents May 18th of 2022, subject to rezoning the severed and retained parcels to the satisfaction of the township. No rezoning is required for the retained parcels. And so again, I seen one small error in my report, was that the purpose of application B-12-22 is to create a lot with approximately 25 meters or 82 feet of frontage on County Road 40 and an area of approximately 0.026 hectares. That should actually read 0.26 hectares. And it says bracket 0.66 acres, and that's correct. So I made a typo error there, put in an extra 0. The purpose of application B-13-22 is to create a lot with 33 meters of frontage on County Road 40 and an area of approximately 0.25 hectares. That's 0.63 acres. Regarding the removal of the holding, so the removing the holding provision requires the owner to complete upgrades to the municipal sewer system at their expense to the satisfaction of the township, or enter into an agreement with the municipality. No building permits will be issued prior to the removal of the holding provision. That is for both of these lots, B-12-22, same condition for B-13-22. At the time of writing this report, the agencies that have answered was Enbridge with no objections, and the County of Peterborough Planning and Public Works. They didn't have any objections. Since then, today, Peterborough Health Unit has no objections. Orca has no objections or concerns, and Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board has no concerns. And if this zoning bylaw amendment is passed and there's no objections or appeals within the 20-day appeal period, October 17th, 2022, the zoning bylaw amendment will be final and binding. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Before questions, Candace, you had your hand up there for a second. And I want to ask also, Candace, is there any persons in attendance for this public meeting too at the time?
Mayor, there's no one in attendance. There's no attendees joining us today. Outside of that, I just want to mention that the circulation under the Planning Act is 120 meters from the subject property. That was completed, as well as I wanted to point out that there is a planning applications page on the website. So where you can see all current planning applications that are currently under consideration, that the entire community and all township residents can pop on at any time, whether they receive an actual physical notice to their door. All that we do, the only ones that receive that are the ones within the 120 meters as prescribed under the Planning Act. But outside of that, if any community member or any resident wishes to take a look at any of the potential zoning bylaw amendments considerations by council, they can go onto the planning applications page on the website and take a look, because they're all up there and updated. The same with the official plan amendments and complete application of subdivisions and condominiums. Just wanted to ensure that council remembers that that is out there in case they're asked by any residents, and if there's any residents watching, that they can ensure that they're kept up to date. Thank you.
Yep. Open and transparent. That's what we try to be. Ed, go ahead.
And I did have a conversation with Mr. Knights, and he was not going to be attending today.
That's fine. Questions from council at this time? Any questions? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Thank you. Just a quick question. What is required as far as a municipal sewer system by the owner? What's the holding provision? What exactly is he required to do?
You want me to answer that, Ed, or are you okay?
Yes, you can answer.
Yeah. So the there'll be no capacity in the sanitary main. So the sanitary main that comes down County Road 40 and then County Road Wellington, in order to connect into the current 600-meter sanitary main replacement project that was undertaken. So there won't be capacity to take anything on there. So they would have to replace the main. That said, as we know, there's additional development happening to the north that's going to obviously trigger that. So it's kind of a first come, first served basis as far as draft plan approvals, et cetera, as to how we assign capacities. So we're putting the H in the holding provision on this property, no different than we did for Norwood Park Phase 4, which is the other development that would be coming down. And obviously timing in regards to each of these properties and how much capacity is actually there, because it isn't completely gone. There is some capacity left there, but not very much. So we have to take a look at the timing of when these developments are coming on board, who's replacing it. Obviously, there may have to be some cost sharing. You're not going to place all of that on one developer and then another property owner is just able to capitalize on that investment of someone else. So there is some legwork that has to be done from staff in regards to how that's all going to work out. But the holding provision ensures that we're not going to see occupancies or usage of that main outside of the township's control. So to ensure that we don't have any catastrophes on our hands. But you are going to have to see that for any offsite work, which you will see in the subdivision agreement for Norwood Park Phase 4 that council has not seen yet. Hasn't been prepared. But once it comes forward to council, you'll see all the offsite work that is included, which does include an upgrade to the main on County Road 40 and Wellington Street in order to tie into the existing infrastructure there. The capacity is almost gone. So the timing of that, again, depends on how many units that infrastructure can take. And again, it's a first come, first serve as to who meets the appropriate stage of development at the right time to be able to get there. So.
Okay, thank you. And just for clarification, the costs that for the upgrade is borne by the developer, correct?
That is correct. All depending on the, it's borne by development, I guess, would be a
Development,
better
yes.
way to put it, because sometimes development charges come into play, because you've got to remember, we'd have to take a look at the condition of the asset, specifically Wellington Street. The condition of Wellington Street, that sanitary main, obviously there are existing residents and it's existing infrastructure to the township. So a brand new main is also going to be utilized by residents and by the township that is outside that development. So there is a certain percentage of ownership that would fall back to the township, and we're going to get a brand new asset out of it. So all of that comes back to council in an offsite financial arrangement and agreement, much the same as we did for the offsite sanitary project for Norwood Park Phase 3.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Moore, please.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor. Deputy Mayor Burt asked part of my question. The second one is, do you anticipate any traffic concerns with this development being on the right-hand side of County Road 40? Do you foresee any, we talked about sight lines, in the township, but this is, on a busy street inside the town. Do you foresee any problems with traffic?
Through you, Mayor. The county planning department, roads department, the roads department will have to issue an entrance approval. They're going to have a combined entrance for both those consent lots and the retained parcel, and only have one entrance come out. So more than likely, the property may be subject to a site plan control as well. It all depends what they propose when it comes to building permit stage. And so the county has already seen the consents and have no issues with the consents, and they do have a block, like a little easement, that will be for both parcels to use as their entrance. So as far as the entrance, I'm assuming everything is going to be okay, or the county would have thrown their hands up.
Thanks for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Councillor Walsh, did I see your hand earlier? Yes.
Yes, you did. Through you, Mayor. I got 2 or 3 questions, actually. So the first one, if you can help me understand, what's the difference between residential 3 exception 4, which is for the 1 lot creation, and residential 3 exception 5 for the other lot creation?
Okay, so for residential 3-4, for that one, so it is slightly deficient in the lot frontage. So the lot frontage is normally 30 meters for an R3 zoned property. So as soon as you alter a zoning requirement, then it becomes an exception. So it's 5 meters short of the frontage that's normally on a lot.
Okay.
And also we've added the 2 uses for an R3 property is an apartment building and a condominium building.
Okay.
And a row house is generally on an R2 lot, which is less than what's on an R3 lot. So we've added the row house into the R3 permitted uses for both exceptions. For exception R3-5, that allows the row house to be built, or an apartment, or a condominium. And so what we are thinking on that is, so if they build a row house and they turn it into a condominium development, if you're only permitted a condominium development, it may take 1 or 2 years to go through the whole process to do. While if you get a row house building permit, you can build it and you can go through that process at the same time, but actually at the end of it, then you can change that into a condominium development if you chose to. And they don't have to, or they can, so it's a really good time saver for them to be able to construct if they choose to go condominium, or just keep a row house and rent it out. They're allowed to do either or.
Okay, awesome. That answers that question. Second question is around with both of these lot creations, is parking spaces will be within those lots, not on County Road 42?
No, County Road 40, excuse me.
Or 40, I should say.
wouldn't allow them to have parking. That's going to
Okay.
be unsafe. I don't know if there's any no parking zone in the immediate area right there. I'm not sure, but they will have to have required parking spaces for the number of units that they have.
Okay. Okay, that's great. And then just, if I can, through you, Mayor, the last question is around, when I look at that diagram, there is that block to the north of Lot A.
Yes.
What is happening in that block?
The block that's not part of it, or the L shaped or dog leg on it.
Right. Yeah,
Do you
that
mean
block. It says the words block. Would be at the north end of that property.
That's an actual private property. It's
Okay.
not this property.
Okay.
There's a dwelling on there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Just a comment. I think this is a good example. This is within the settlement area of our infilling and intensification plans, and certainly that is what the province is looking for, and that is what we need in our community. So just a comment there.
This
Yeah,
is
thank
very
you.
good.
Yeah, my comment is that we are open for business, and the way to go through condominium or row housing is quite a good way to streamline the job to get it done a little faster, and that's what a lot of the builders are looking for too. So good work on that one, Ed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So just as a meeting of record, I know there's no one in attendance, but I'm still going to ask if there is any persons in attendance to speak in support of, and I would ask 1, 2, and 3 times. Don't have to do that.
No, you do have to do that, but no, Mayor, there's no one in attendance.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then I'll ask if there's any persons in attendance in opposition of this application. Then I'll ask for the first, second, and third time. And
No one
there's
in
still no one.
attendance.
Thank you. Okay, that's our meeting of record. So then Ed's wrote off, talked about the recommendation a few times there. I'm not going to ask him to repeat it again. We all know what we're looking for, unless you want me to do that, clerk. Read the recommendation.
I will read it.
Okay.
If you don't mind, Mayor, I think it's
Thank you.
important.
Yep.
That the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood accepts this report regarding ZBLA-05-2022 night for information, and further that the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood directs staff to prepare a bylaw that will rezone portions of the subject lands from residential 1 R1 zone to the residential 3 exception 4 holding R3-4H zone and the residential 3 exception 5 holding R3-5H zone.
Thank you, Candace.
You're welcome.
Motioned by Councillor War, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that's carried. Good job, Ed. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now I need a motion then to adjourn this public meeting on September 27th, 2022. It's going to be adjourned at 2:23 p.m. and that we would return to our regular meeting of council. Be resumed. Motioned by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. All in favor? And then that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so we're back in open council again, and we were on the subject of R7, which was our 2023 draft building budget. And if memory serves me correct, Councillor War, you had your hand up for a question, please. You're muted still, please.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I see that there is under the capital expenditures something for a vehicle, and I know in the past we have talked about, you know, a hybrid model, or I don't know if with the building department whether they would need, you know, in a bylaw or how this vehicle would be shared. I just wondered if you would explain the vehicle purchase for anyone.
Go ahead.
So yes, as previously explained, there's $750,000 sitting in the building reserve that can only be utilized. Those funds can only be utilized for the building department. So currently, all of the building department staff utilize their own personal vehicles for all operations due to the fact that we continue to grow and the demand on that department continues to increase. And considering that there is such a vast reserve sitting there, it will be township staff's recommendation that a vehicle is purchased. Of course, the purchasing of that vehicle, the maintenance of the vehicle, the licensing, fuel, etc., will continue to be borne by the building department revenues, which again, just to reiterate, does not impact the tax base or the taxpayers. So the goal, we have taken a look at going green in regards to this vehicle, what that looks like, the type, whether it be a hybrid, whether it be fully electrical, what facility is the best facility in order to add that type of electrical component and infrastructure to be able to support the charging of this vehicle, because we don't want to be charging it at a local charging station. We would prefer to charge it over the nighttime at a municipal facility. And then obviously there is an opportunity then to share this vehicle with other departments. Instead of adding multiple vehicles, we can take a look at out of the gate, sharing this vehicle, whether it's with administration. We have talked to water and wastewater. They do have to run in samples to Lakefield a couple of times a week. If the vehicle is sitting here, they're able to grab it because the manager of water and wastewater utilizes his personal vehicle for those operations, when the other water wastewater employee has the vehicle, department vehicle in use out in the distribution and collection systems. So there is an opportunity there to pull operations more into the corporation and not be expecting staff members to be utilizing their personal vehicles for day-to-day operations of the township, when there are such a vast reserve sitting there that needs to be utilized. If the township doesn't utilize it, it has to be used to offset department expenditures. Then we have to take a look at the building department revenues and whether we need to reduce the cost of a building permit. So it is prudent to be able to utilize those costs. And in order to do that, there isn't a lot of capital opportunities in the building department. So really where it lands is lands a vehicle. From an administrator perspective, it's a little more challenging to continue to ask staff to use their personal vehicle with a $750,000 reserve sitting there. So that is really the justification. Further explanation and further, obviously that vehicle would have to be tendered and council would award that tender. So further information coming down the pipe if approved in budget.
Just to follow up, yeah, thank you. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to use some of these resources, and I'm sure that there'd be cost savings because we would be paying mileage to anyone that's using their own vehicle to do work of the township as well. So I think that it's good. I just saw that it was in the budget, and I just think that, we need to identify when there's a large sum like that, the reason to it, and you explained it perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on R7? No? Okay. Just a comment from myself. Ed, I know that your department has been doing wonderful things, and you've kept us the doors open, and like I've always preached, we're open for business, and your department has done a marvelous job about that. And we've got nothing but compliments out there that I've heard about the department and your staff. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep. Okay, so the recommendation for R7 then would be that we receive this draft building budget for information at this time. Motion by Councillor Warr, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ed. Okay, R8, Candace White, CAO Clerk Treasurer. This is regarding our 2023 draft bylaw on animal control budget, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. So again, to continue delivering to council departmental budgets in small bites. So what you have in front of you is bylaw on animal control. Bylaw on animal control, although is housed underneath the building department and is managed by the chief building official directly, it is funded by the tax base. As you can see, We're not proposing any significant changes to the bylaw department. So therefore, it's a very modest difference in the 2023 allocation of about $1,500. So pretty insignificant in regards to the tax base as a whole. The bigger change that you would see would be in animal control. And as this current complement of council is aware, that boils down to the change in pound keeper services when the Peterborough Humane Society did not enter into a contract and agreement to continue pound keeper services with the township. The township was then forced to go and research other alternatives. During that research, we landed with Northumberland Humane Society, and with that comes an annual pound keeper services retainer of approximately $6,000. So that would be the difference. Township staff did try to offset some of those costs, and we are looking just for an increase in animal control of about $1,880 for a combined total for both departments of $3,414.72, which doesn't really equate to an actual increase to the rate at this point for any of the departments that council has seen to date, because it's such an insignificant amount. So you can see that there's building and bylaw and animal control, like that department is, as I stated, overseen by the chief building official. So some of their wages are allocated to this department and funded by the tax base. I will take any questions of council.
Thank you, Candace. Councillor Ward, thank you.
Yes, thank you through you. I was just wondering if the bylaw on animal control, if we do any educational portions for our residents, whether it be the bylaws for how many cats or dogs, or like, do we ever put out any of that information on any of our platforms? Even with livestock and poultry, just what's allowed, what's not allowed. I was just wondering if we do educational portions like that we send out.
It has been, not as of late. I can tell you in the past, it has been included in a tax newsletter, such as we'll highlight frequently requested bylaws. So on our website, the frequently requested bylaw section are the bylaws that receive the most questions or the most activities from the bylaw department. Because as council is aware, obviously there's hundreds and hundreds of bylaws that govern the day-to-day activities of the township and the residents. But there is obviously those dozen that continue to the forefront, and that does include the cat bylaw, the dog bylaw, exotic animal bylaw, clean and clear bylaw, property standards. The ones that really govern the day-to-day of the residents, they are included in the frequently requested bylaws. We have highlighted them on the socials, but it has been I would say a bit of time since we've had the opportunity to do that, but we can easily circle back around and just remind residents that the frequently requested bylaw pages on our website and on the social media, we can actually include the link. So then they can just click the link and circle back to that page because that page is kept current. So if we were to ever make any amendments to those bylaws, then those links would never have to be updated to include information. We would just circle them back to the website, because I can't reiterate enough how important it is for township, residents that have access to internet or are okay with utilizing websites and the internet to really utilize that resource. Pretty much anything you want to know about our township, 98% of it is on that website. We try to make it as click friendly as possible, as in 1 or 2 clicks in order to get to the information. But at any point in time, if there's any resident out there, or if council, you're getting any questions, please do not hesitate to have a resident contact a municipal staff and give them a quick little 2 or 3 minute tutorial on how to utilize our website. Because once they receive that, the light bulb kind of goes off and they're like, wow, like the website actually is very simple to navigate once you have that quick little tutorial. But we will circle back as staff and based on this comment, Councillor Ward, and do a little socials push in regards to frequently requested bylaws and take it from there.
Thank you for that. Sometimes when we know something, we do better. So anyways, thanks for the educational portion of that.
Great question. Anyone else? Any questions on this? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Thank you. Just a quick question, and this is stemming from correspondence lists that came to county last week. So when it comes to livestock losses due to wildlife, according to what it's shown in the budget, it looks like we are certainly covering our costs for investigation and administration. Is that correct, or are we, what comes from the province for the reimbursement? Is it not covering those costs? And I'm sure it varies greatly. Maybe we don't have a lot of losses compared to other municipalities. So I was just curious to what it was like in our township.
Through you, Mayor. So we don't see a lot of livestock activity. Obviously, we do have a large portion of our township is agricultural property. So you would think we have more than what we actually do. We tend to have, at most, I would say a really active year would be like 5 to 6. And I have seen years where we've had maybe like 2 to 3. Obviously, the value of that animal dictates that budget line, but it isn't in and out for us. So the province has kind of made us the vehicle for the farming community to access this program. And what I mean by that is if a farmer was to lose an animal, say the coyotes got a sheep, they contact us, we go out, we do an investigation. We go out once, we investigate, we get the application sent in, we reimburse the farmer, and then the province reimburses us. It's a fairly quick turnaround from the provincial side. They have changed the paperwork a few times over the last 5 years, but all in all, it's pretty cost recoverable. I've never highlighted that we are spending hours and hours of township resources and time that's not being reimbursed by the province. We automatically get an administration fee tacked onto every application from the province that retains with the township to cover costs, and it's never been highlighted as a concern. We just don't have a lot of them. So
okay, that's good to know, because it was a highlight at our last meeting, and I just wasn't sure how it affected our township. But if those costs are being covered, that's excellent to know. Thank you.
Yeah, there's not much to it.
Any other questions or comments, concerns? Councillor Walsh, please. And you're muted.
Sorry. When it comes to dog tagging, what time of year do we normally start sending out reminders for dog tagging?
Traditionally, it's the first quarter of every year, so it would be the February, March time frame. And then obviously, if you do get your dog tag a certain time, it is cheaper than if you wait. And then we continue to send reminders. And then if it isn't paid, it gets tacked onto the tax base.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing no hands, then the recommendations that we received this R8 for budget for information. Councillor Walsh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. Any other discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, Candace, big subject here. Candace White, our CAO clerk and treasurer. This is regarding the intent to lease the Norwood Medical Campus building. Candace, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So the buzz has been on the street in regards to this topic for a little while now. I know every time I attend a public meeting, it most definitely gets asked at least once by concerned residents in regards to sustainable healthcare in Asphodel-Norwood. As we all know, our family doctor, Dr. Keogh, we entered into a new agreement with him. It was renegotiated earlier this year, with the end date of that agreement being December 31st, 2024. The hopes is that Dr. Keogh will remain providing medical care to residents until that date. But ultimately, the township is not in control of Dr. Keogh and when he decides to move on to the much deserved next stage of his life. That said, there's a couple of things that the township has been tasked with by the residents directly. Every single survey, which as a council and as a staff, we have made it a priority to send out multiple surveys over the course of the last few years to gain public opinion as to where they would like us to focus our priorities. It has been resoundingly clear in the last number of years as to where that is. And number one priority has been healthcare and the ability to attract and retain family medicine and doctors and nurse practitioners to Asphodel-Norwood. It's highlighted as the number one priority of our strategic plan. And so with that, the mayor and I attended multiple meetings with Ontario Health to try to understand the process of recruiting and attracting family doctors and nurse practitioners. As council is aware, healthcare is not a mandate of municipal government. Healthcare is a mandate of the provincial government. So we have not been exposed to that process and what that looks like. So in the last couple of years, multiple meetings have taken place to advise council. Peterborough Family Health Team is the FIT that oversees, that Dr. Keogh is a member of. So they oversee and provide the overarching funding mechanism for Asphodel-Norwood. Peterborough Family Health Team receives its funding from the province through Ontario Health. So to break this conversation into two parts, I would like to first address the nurse practitioner. So currently there's 23 nurse practitioners funded by the Peterborough Family Health Team in the city of Peterborough and the county of Peterborough for those areas and municipalities that fall under the Peterborough Family Health Team umbrella. In order to put a nurse practitioner in Asphodel-Norwood, a couple of things would have to happen. One, they would either have to agree to pull one from another community to place one here in order to still only be funding 23 nurse practitioners. As you can imagine, that is not something that the community would like to see, nor as us as a community would expect from another community, or that the Peterborough Family Health Team is likely to consider. So the only other option then was to strongly advocate for a 24th nurse practitioner to be added to the Peterborough Family Health Team's operating budget and to ensure that that 24th nurse practitioner is placed in Asphodel-Norwood. So that is what we were tasked with. So the first step was to get Peterborough Family Health Team to agree to include that in their operating budget submission to the provincial government. We achieved that. Check mark in that box, it was submitted. The next step beyond that, it was to advocate for the approval of that increase to the operating budget at the Ontario Health level. The mayor and I have been pursuing this, as you can imagine, with some tenacity to ensure that that approval has come in place. We have received nothing but positive feedback. Obviously, we are not in full control of that final approval, but we have been advised that that approval is expected in the around January is when Peterborough Family Health Team will likely receive their final approval of their operating budgets. Now, with that, there has been a shuffle in the provincial cabinet, and there is a new minister. So we've also been advised that you need to take under consideration the fact that it may be delayed by a month due to the fact that there is a new minister in that role, as Minister Elliott did not return. So that is the nurse practitioner. From my chair and the number of conversations that we have sat in on, that is all good news. We've done our job as a municipality. We have heard the residents. We have figured out the system and how it works and met with the appropriate people to give us the best shot and the best opportunity. It's important for council and the residents to know if we are unsuccessful. So if Ontario Health does not approve the increase to the Peterborough Family Health Team's budget for a 24th nurse practitioner, then the only other mechanism to get a nurse practitioner in Asphodel-Norwood is to directly fund it ourselves. So obviously the goal, as it is not our mandate to fund healthcare, is to wait until that decision is received and to continue to have the appropriate conversations at the appropriate level of government to ensure that the right voices and the right eyes are being heard and seen in regards to our application. Currently, if we switch the conversation now over to family physicians and our current need within Asphodel-Norwood, again, is a two-pronged conversation. The first conversation is that we obviously have a family doctor that is set to retire in the short term. And with that is an existing file base patient load that needs to be addressed and transferred over to a new doctor. Currently, that's approximately 2,000 patients. New family doctors coming out of medical school prefer to see a team approach to family medicine with a maximum caseload of 800, approximately 800 files, 1,000 at the very, very most. Obviously, if a nurse practitioner is attached to the clinic and can assist with that patient load, you can see that number increase because they are able to manage more while striking work-life balance. So you can do the math. You can see that we're not going to replace the current patient load with one doctor. So we're going to have to replace that current patient load with 2, if not 3 doctors. And that does not even consider the growth. So the number of residents that have moved to the township that are either without a doctor at all or are still utilizing their family healthcare professionals in the GTA or wherever they are moving from and are commuting exceptionally long distances to be able to receive healthcare. So obviously, we need to have a team of doctors here for multiple reasons. One, the patient load to ensure that all patients have a local doctor that they're able to have their healthcare needs met. And 2, because doctors prefer and will likely only go to a place that can provide a team approach to healthcare. They don't want the one family doctor approach to family medicine has gone by the wayside. The larger percentage of family doctors coming out of medical school are female. And with that comes an increased emphasis on work-life balance. And it's very, very important for the new medical professionals coming out of medical school to be able to go into an atmosphere to strike that balance. So if we do, as a municipality, we have to do our best to be able to provide that atmosphere in order to recruit family doctors. So that opened up the next conversation with the doctor recruiting team. So there was a doctor recruiter with Peterborough County, Maria Gomez. The mayor and I met with her a few times and discussed an approach. She was able to solve, for lack of a better term, the family doctor shortage in West Northumberland, and was able to do that without providing financial incentives. And how she done that was be able to provide facilities and a non-business model to doctors. Doctors go to medical school. They don't have an MBA. So they do not want to run a business. They don't want to run payroll. They don't want to have to pay bills. They want to come see their patients, ensure that they're well, and go home. That's the job that they do. So that is the recommendation that came from that doctor recruiter. Since that time, Maria Gomez has moved on, and another family recruiter has taken over, and the city of Peterborough County, under Peterborough Kawartha Economic Development, has funded has struck a committee that is going to look after doctor recruitment in the city and the county of Peterborough. Some conversation has taken place by myself with the new doctor recruiter, and I am actively always pursuing to receive information from that committee. The composition of that committee from my chair and my perspective and opinion only is challenging. So I believe that we are in control of our own destiny here, and Asphodel-Norwood, let's be straight out honest, is in full competition with all other lower tier municipalities in Peterborough County to get a doctor here. So this committee is responsible for doctor recruitment for the city as a whole and the county as a whole. So they're going to look at, as long as they get a doctor somewhere, that's a success for them, and wholeheartedly respect that. But ultimately, for us, the success is having the doctor in Asphodel-Norwood for our residents. So in order to achieve that, obviously based on recommendations from Peterborough Family Health Team, doctor recruiters, Dr. Keogh himself, is that a new medical center in Asphodel-Norwood, it is what is required in order to attract this team of family doctors. So during the course of these conversations, without being approached by, I just want to be upfront and clear, we did not approach this team of investors. I did not personally or as the CAO of the township. Neither did the mayor, neither did any member of this current council. What did happen was a group of investors obviously understands the needs of this community and got together and approached the mayor and I in regards to building a new medical center and a new facility in Asphodel-Norwood to see if we can solve the need. So what you have in front of you is an intent to lease a space within that new medical professional building. There isn't a lot of information known at this time, as it is in the very preliminary stages, but obviously in order for a group of investors that are going to invest, I think it's safe to say millions of dollars, that they would need some sort of soft commitment at this point in time from all of the individuals that would be retaining space in this medical center. Obviously, the largest portion of the medical center would be retained by the township. So that is what the intent to lease agreement is for in front of you. It is my understanding, I'm obviously not the investor, that they will be also entering into intent to lease arrangements with the other medical care professionals that they wish to provide space to. But as a township, we want to have first right and refusal to the location of the clinic within the facility. As well as we have to put our township hat on and ensure that the facility is built, because it is a private venture, so that they will be responsible for the site servicing. They will be responsible for sanitary, water, storm, parking, maintaining that building and that property during the course of the build and post-build. The township will not be plowing the parking lot. The township will not be cutting the grass. This is all a private entity. We would essentially, if this was to move forward, again, very preliminary at this point, if this was to move forward, then we would just be paying a lease payment, and all other expenses would be borne by the corporation directly, not by the township. The township solicitor has been actively involved in regards to the agreement that is in front of council today and has approved its contents and does not believe that there's anything that puts the township at risk at this point in time. Obviously, this is not the end of the road here in regards to conversations. This is the first conversation. This is the first conversation that has been brought council table because the corporation has reached a point where they need to have some sort of approvals in place. So that is what you see in front of you today. Obviously, with everything comes financial implications, which is obviously the most important consideration of this entire conversation outside of public consultation. So I'll address financial impact now. As council is aware, we currently own a medical center. So we've already stepped into the arena of healthcare. This is not new. We have for many years provided the medical center for the current doctor in the community and have paid all the bills to do so. Cleaning, hydro, heat, utilities, water, repairs and maintenance, bag tags. We replaced the server in the medical center 2 years ago. We are already financially invested into healthcare and into a medical center in this community. It has been a fantastic facility. It has done its job. It has provided healthcare to residents in Asphodel-Norwood for decades. But as times change, and unfortunately, everything comes to an end. And that is basically the story, what we're hearing here. Even if we weren't growing, it's important to understand, I know it may be easy to blame the situation on the fact that Asphodel-Norwood is growing. Yeah, it is most definitely a part of the conversation, but it is not the only conversation. If you've been listening along the way, you've heard me explain that we can't even get one doctor in here to replace the current patient load. So, and our medical care facility just isn't set up or established to be able to provide a modern medicine approach to a team of doctors. So we are tasked with, do we build a medical center ourselves, brand new, put that capital out, or do we capitalize on an opportunity that none of us seen coming that has been presented to us by a private team of investors that we enter into a lease? Currently, We put out $116,500 a year in expenses to the medical center. That is offset by approximately $25,000 in revenue that we have for rental space within the current medical center facility. That nets out to approximately a cost of $91,500 for the cost of the medical center on an annual basis. A leasing cost has not been established, as this is not a lease agreement. It is an intent that, yes, the township would like to continue the conversation with the investors. So I have done some research in regards to what the market value is for commercial lease space. This is not coming from the team of investors. This is coming from the treasurer hat, taking into account what the current market looks at right now. And it's about $21 per square foot. So if we're looking at approximately 3,500 square foot, that equates to approximately $73,500 annually plus HST. As you can see from the intent to lease, the township solicitor and I heavily discussed what that lease should look like. There's multiple different types of lease combinations that you can have, but from a township perspective, an all-inclusive lease makes the most sense. So you're not looking at addition to leasing. So, well, here's your lease amount, but here's also your additional rent for utilities, insurances, land taxes, etc. So to try to avoid the multi-layer approach, the township solicitor recommending to, when the time comes, to consider a one-time lease payment approach, obviously, but that would HST would be a plus. The township would be responsible at this point in time, based on conversations, with furnishing the space, such as the waiting room, which we currently do as well. So the township did provide all the chairs and the chattels and everything for the current medical center. So that would continue. Township staff has had an internal conversation as to what that could look like as a management team. And as we are all human beings, we've all been in medical centers and other professional buildings, and you often see a plaque on the wall that says this room was donated by such and such a family or such and such an individual or group, etc. And I do believe we live in a very giving and loving community, and do believe that there is some opportunity there to potentially have some families or individuals or groups or businesses come forward and perhaps invest and donate towards the furnishing of the building. We've seen it at the community center. I don't think you can go into a single room in the community center without a plaque on the wall that says provided by, furnished by, and a wonderful member or family of our community being attached to that. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball. As you know, I should get that on a t-shirt because I say that to council at least 100 times a year, but I do not have one. And I don't know how successful that program would be. But I do have a good feeling that we would be able to be successful with something like that. Obviously, we have a current facility. So if this moves forward beyond the initial stages and the township down the road does enter into a full lease and the medical center moves over there and a new team of doctors is brought in, we have a building. We need, obviously, that we currently own, that we need to take a look at. There has been some preliminary conversations with Peterborough County staff because they do rent out for the ambulance base for the paramedics at the one end, and we want to ensure that that base retains. We want to retain EMS in Asphodel-Norwood borders. So having a conversation with them. Obviously, this ties into the fire hall conversation, that study. There's been reasons, very strategic and specific reasons why that study has not taken place, because from my perspective, from an administration perspective, what's the point of having a study based on individual needs and individual facilities when you can do an overarching one? I knew the medical center conversation was coming. I knew that 2 years ago. And to me, there's an opportunity to do a full study of all municipal facility structure needs and not just piecemeal it and do the fire hall, then do the medical center. And you're going to pay more for that. So there's some efficiencies in doing a full comprehensive facility review if the medical center doesn't in fact become surplus. So then we would need to take a look at municipal facilities as a whole. So look at the town hall, look at our libraries, look at our office spaces, look at the medical center, look at the fire halls, look at everything. And what do we need to sustain current operations to avoid unnecessary repairs and maintenance due to the failure of current facilities? And what do we need to ensure that we are sustainable from an operations perspective and a financial perspective for the next 30 to 50 years. So that's a study that I will be proposing to council to undertake in 2023 in the budget. I'm currently researching what the cost of that would be for a municipality of our size. Other municipalities around us have undertaken it, but they're much, much larger and have a lot more facilities to consider than we do. But I'm suspecting it would be the $30,000 to $50,000 range. But once the budget comes forward, I will obviously let council know what exactly that would mean and what that would look like. And then obviously that would dictate how we would move forward. The council chambers conversation, as we know, we have a temporary position in place thanks to COVID. We had to turn on a dime there in order to ensure staffing operations could move forward, but the current solution isn't meant to continue on for a long period of time. So we knew, again, as staff and as council, that this conversation was coming, so the chamber conversation would be brought into play. So I am currently looking for any questions, conversations. I think you've heard me talk long enough, but I wanted to ensure that as council, you kind of had a full picture as to what it was we were talking about.
Very in-depth, Candace. Thank you very much. Council, I'm sure there's some questions or comments. Who would like to start? Councillor Walsh, please. You're muted again, Barry.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you very much for a very in-depth, up-to-date recap of what's taking place from a healthcare perspective in our community. It certainly is a need. We've known it. We've known Dr. Keogh, as you said, wishes to retire and graciously deserves that opportunity to retire. And it sounds like, you know, from everything that's going on, we've been very productive in terms of trying to source nurse practitioner funding. I'm totally aligned with the fact that this is the world that we operate in terms of doctor recruitment these days. As like you said, they simply want to come in and doctor from 9 till 5, not have to deal with administration, want the team approach, and then leave at the end of the day and enjoy life for the rest of the day and in the weekend. So I think the approach we're taking by basically providing them a state-of-the-art, I would call it medical center, for them to come here, to me is the only way we're going to be able to attract doctors to come to our village and support our residents, because it certainly is a need. You speak to a lot of people that are traveling back to other communities that are here from I look up in the new Peterborough Home subdivision that are going back home to where they came from to be with their doctor because they can't find a doctor here. I think if I look at the financial piece, we net out actually costing us $91,500 after the lease revenue you get back. Yes, we'll have a lease agreement of $73,500 roughly to lease this facility, but we're also going to be saving on the operational expenses and capital improvements. Right now, that's about $46,000 that we wouldn't have to deal with when we're simply leasing a building. So my figures show us that incrementally it would be a cost to us of somewhere around $30K per year to have a lease on a brand new building and really provide state-of-the-art to attract to your point, we need 2-3 doctors here and a nurse practitioner in with them. I think it's a great solution for our township and our residents.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Walsh. You just sparked something that I wanted to circle back to in my report that I didn't, and that was back to the public consultation piece. So I think I stated very clearly in my staff report that a rezoning of the parcel is not required, which would, as we all know, zoning bylaw amendments always trigger the 120 meter circulation, et cetera. That was a concern of staff. Obviously, we can't just force a rezoning because we think one should happen. It either falls within the zoning bylaw or it doesn't. But we want to, because a planning application won't be triggered, we still feel that there needs to be a public consultation process because of the proposed location of this facility, which is at what would be the Spruce Street extension. As council is aware, it wasn't this council actually, it was a previous council where that road allowance came into the township fold. So there is a road allowance now that extends Spruce Street all the way straight out to Industrial Drive. And that was improved by the previous council. So we do have an unopened road allowance in there. Obviously that would have to be, would be the traveling portion of how to get to this facility. The goal is to put it at the top end off the Spruce Street end, because the infrastructure that's currently in place at Spruce Street can take the facility on. As council is aware, Industrial Drive doesn't have sanitary, and the water main needs to be replaced. So from an infrastructure perspective, we can't put it at the Industrial Drive end at this point and it be supported without fully ripping up Industrial Drive and doing the infrastructure replacement, which is coming, but the timing doesn't align. The road allowance, obviously the goal would be to have it extended so we can share the increase in traffic. That said, keep in mind, it's a medical center. It's not a shopping center. So the traffic, the vehicular traffic that's coming into this place, the doctors show up in the morning, they remain there all day, they leave at the end of their day, and then the number of patients they see throughout the day. So the first stages of this development is a medical center. We're not talking about hundreds of cars a day. In all honesty, we're probably talking 25 cars a day to start. Will that increase over a period of time? Yes, depending on how this site develops. But we can only deal with what we have in front of us now. If the site continues to develop and we see an increase and we do see a potential use and increases traffic, that could be 5 years down the road, 7 years down the road, 8 years down the road, and we'll have to address it at that time. We can't sit here and predict and solve everything when it may never come to fruition. So as of right now, we are tasked with looking at a medical center, and a medical center with, as of right now, has really, when you look at it, there's no signed up doctors to come to it. So right now it would be essentially an empty building with adding a doctor, then adding a second doctor, then maybe adding a dietitian or a physiotherapist or some other type of medical services, and it'll grow slowly over time. So traffic would have to obviously be considered, water, sanitary, storm, site plan control for parking, and ensuring that the residents in the area are notified and have a public forum to be able to have their voices heard. I was very upfront in my staff report. Councillor Archer is not with us today, but Councillor Archer is a principal in the corporation that is one of the private investors that is will be involved in the project, but also, as we all know, Councillor Archer has not registered to be re-elected, and his term on council ceases on November 14th of this year. So just wanted to highlight those two very important pieces to maybe assist council with their questions.
Thank you. You have a follow-up?
Just a quick follow-up. Thank you very much, Candace, for that. That public consultation, how do you see that, like what sort of format and how would you see that evolving and potential timing of that?
Depending on the outcome of today. So if hypothetically council approves to enter into an intent to lease, then that would be delivered back to the corporation of investors. And I would ask then for public consultation to start. Again, it would be preliminary because they don't have a design. So people are going to come to that public information meeting based on my history and involvement with them. The first thing that they're going to ask for is they're going to ask for details. And they're going to ask for details about the facility and details about the building. And we just don't have it and they don't have it. So I think the first public consultation will be based on location, traffic, site servicing, the fact that the investors have agreed to ensure aesthetically that this does not provide a nuisance to the neighboring residents when it comes to maybe a buffering of trees, fencing, etc. So it would be more of a site servicing, site plan control type conversation I see out of the gate. And then as the development progresses. So then when council gets to the point of looking at a lease, the actual lease, and we actually have some meat to it, then I would expect another round of public consultation. Then people would be able to actually find out information about the building itself. They're looking at one story. It's not, as far as I'm concerned, like, it's not going to be multiple. It's not going to be invasive. They really want to fall in line. They know they back onto a residential community, even though it's zoned what it's zoned. The zoning of this property came long before any of us sitting here, and they zoned that property in the middle of this township, and that's what it retains. And it's the only industrial type lands that we have in the settlement area. So we need to be conscious and respectful of that fact and ensure that the voices are heard. But the buzz is out there, and I know that, or it's my feeling that any concerns that are brought forward, there's a willing spirit to mitigate them, to ensure that this community has doctors.
Yep. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, council? Councillor Ward, please.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. I really appreciate your outline, because I feel sometimes that people don't realize all of the legwork that people do behind the scenes, especially consulting with different health professionals, and that discussion that takes place that doesn't always take place in public. And, you know, we didn't know that a private investor was going to, you know, put this opportunity here. It's a big discussion, and there's going to be many, many conversations to come. What I do like, I like that you have included the master's facility plan, because as you said, that can be an overarching plan that would include the discussion of a fire hall, which is also needed. So I'm assuming that will help cover some of that. And that's a discussion that I think that will be a bigger conversation as well. As to the Birch Street extension, understanding that Industrial Drive is not serviced, but if there is a road allowance, many roads aren't always serviced all the way down. So is there the possibility, even though there would be one entrance from Birch, and I understand this is preliminary, that the extension, even though it would not be serviced, they could still have two entrances into that same facility as we do have that road allowance? That's my question.
Just for clarification, I think it's Spruce Street.
Oh, sorry, Spruce. I said Birch. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
Okay. That's okay. No, you're quite right.
Yeah.
What I was meaning to is when I was talking about servicing, is we can't run the servicing down. No, so we can't run north with it and go directly into the wastewater treatment plant. There's no provision to do that. We literally the sanitary would have to flow, go up Industrial Drive, down County Road 40 to Lions Park, to the force main to be forced back to the plant. As ridiculous as that all sounds, that is the process. So that is why servicing has to come off Spruce. Obviously, we can build a road with no water, sewer, or storm underneath it. It's been done all the time. So ensuring that there is a road that connects to Industrial Drive, there will be a road there for construction traffic out of the gate. We've already advised that all construction traffic has to go down through Industrial Drive, and a temporary road has to be constructed to ensure construction traffic goes that way. That said, the water wastewater operations manager then highlighted concerns with that because the water main underneath there is so vulnerable, and it's only a surface treated road, that heavy traffic on a regular basis just on that road could impact that water main. So we may have to split the construction traffic. So I guess I don't want to get painted into a corner and say something today that is so preliminary, because we don't even have a design. So I don't even know what the sanitary design, water main, storm, the storm management report alone could force an Industrial Drive route just based on the storm infrastructure that's required. I do not know. Obviously, the end goal would be to have the road allowance completely through and have two ways coming in and out of that facility. That's the end goal. But I guess my point is it may be staged to get there. It's not going to be instantly there out of the gate. I don't believe. I believe it's going to have to be a staged approach. It's a lot of infrastructure. It's quite a ways across there, actually. Like, I think it's about 800 meters across there. That's when you look at the cost of having a road reconstruction for 600 to 800 meters. That's a lot. It's a big way, especially, and we also don't know what this is going to mean for the rest of the industrial drive parcel. So you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself and start putting infrastructure in the ground when you don't know the full picture yet at this point in time. And we want to make sure we're not ripping anything up. And we're going to have to assume all of that infrastructure. It's a road, it's sanitary, it's storm, it's water. It's going to become ours, the offsite stuff. So yes, I want to see two entrances, two ingress and egress. How that happens, when that happens, is just a little too early to tell.
No, and I thank you for your honesty because, but I think that the dialogue has to remain open because, people will be, once this is, well, it's now public, those are the questions we're going to be, receiving. So I think that, we have to do things cautiously and, I understand the infrastructure and the cost involved. I just wanted to ask the question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Or I comment. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Burt.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. This is very exciting and it feels very overwhelming because we have no answers. So this is a very different report than what we've been used to. Normally we're given very specific details. This is what it's going to cost. We enter into agreement. So this is very different from what we've been seeing the last almost 4 years. To me, it's the idea of build it and they will come. We will see. But I think from certainly my perspective, I think it's a very important way to really look outside the box and do an arrangement that we may not have thought of. And I think we should be very grateful that some private investors came forward. It certainly is a different way to do things. And unfortunately, it's a way we have to do things. Healthcare is the responsibility of the province. And unfortunately, it's one of those things that has downloaded to the municipalities. And but I think given the plan that you brought forward, I think it's a good starting place for us to begin the conversation. And it's going to be a big conversation. And I certainly, this is just the beginning. And I really don't have any questions because, well, I shouldn't say that. There are so many questions, but those will come forward as we move forward within the agreement. It's interesting you say he has Dr. Keogh has about 2,000 patients and looking at 8 to 1,000 max for a family doctor with support. And not only do we have our own community that is growing, but certainly within our community, residents are losing doctors, whether they're retired, doctors, family doctors right now, they're cutting their practices. We have, 5 immediate family members who've had the same doctor for years, and 2 of them have received letters saying, I'm sorry, I'm downsizing my practice. So not only do you have new people coming, but you have current residents that are losing doctors. So I think anything we can do to move this along, I think this is a good starting point, and it's exciting, a little scary, but it's also exciting. So no specific questions, but let's get this thing moving.
Follow-up, Councillor Moore.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just to follow up on that, yes, I think it's so exciting. And it also offers up new opportunities for the existing medical center and maybe, partnerships with other organizations that we haven't thought about attracting or retaining in our municipality. So that building also offers a lot of opportunities. If this does go forward, there's so many opportunities that other building may offer to our residents. So I just wanted to throw out that as we begin conversations with this.
Candace?
Yes, thank you. Just to follow up with that, that'll follow back into outcomes with the facility needs study. So part of the facility needs study will be engagement and to try to learn those opportunities that may exist out there that we didn't know exist. Will be to try to attract those conversations. And then all of those will be presented to council in the final facility needs report. And just to clarify, it will include the fire halls.
Yeah, thank you, Council. All great questions and a great report. Candace, very, very much appreciated it. And especially to the corporation that's put this together to bring it forward to us. My only comment, I guess, Candace, is that we're going to have to get our sleeves rolled up again and then get a hold of a couple ministers once again and lobby them to help us fix that that pipe coming down that we need to get fixed. We've tried that before and we didn't have so much luck, I think, when we were trying to get that the plant fixed down there at the Lions Park too, the upgrades on that, and then we failed at that too at that particular time. But I think we roll up our sleeves again once we get back in as council and go for it. Simple as that. So, all right, council, I guess we've had enough discussion on this R9, the intent to lease the Norwood Medical Campus building. So the recommendation today then is that we receive this report regarding the intent to lease. And then further that you authorize myself, the mayor, and the clerk to execute the intent to lease for space in the proposed Norwood Medical Campus building to be located on an extension of Spruce Street with company number 2339213 Ontario Limited. We have a motion by Councillor War, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Any other discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, Candace, I know you probably need a drink of water by now after that last report, but R10 then would be the draft administration budget, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So yes, to carry on in the spirit of budget, thought I'd throw that other report in the middle to break it up a little bit, because I don't know if the rest of council gets excited about numbers as I do, but so what you're going to see in front of you is administration. And in the staff report, I just thought it was important to reiterate exactly what administration, it's a pretty overarching word. So administration as a whole includes the tax department, finance department, clerk's office, administration staff, municipal office expenses, including all municipal advertising, communication, IT, including website, file management, document retention, and human resources. So that is all of the services that the administration department provides. So pretty vast department, pretty important. It does not propose any significant changes to operations for 2023. Therefore, the impact to the budget for all of those departments as a whole, this isn't individually, this is altogether $2,266.99. So obviously pretty minimal across the board. It is important to note that we have found some efficiencies within the administration department, most importantly, telephone and internet, the utilities coming into all of our facilities have been, we've changed providers and have realized some pretty significant savings. You'll also see that we're going to see an increase in bank interest revenue. A lot of that is due to the fact that although the increase in prime has impacted the debt side of things, which the township doesn't have any, but it also impacts, and on a favorable side, any interest revenue that the township has because it is impacted by prime. So you will see an increase in revenue there. You will see the onboarding of the IT department, which is the shared position with Duro Dummer. Interviews are taking place for that now next week for that position to be able to retain that. So that's exciting. That's really only the biggest change. We're going to keep on going with our extensive communication programs, with all of our surveys, our community press ad every week, website, socials, newsletters, all of those. Obviously, we're seeing a slight increase in postage because as we add more houses and we mail things out, it's cost per letter. We have to see an increase to our asset management or plan allocation, which is going to be funded from reserves. Obviously, council is aware there is the next stage of the OREG, and we are up to do a full comprehensive update to our asset management plan. That is going to be a huge undertaking that is mandated, that has to be completed in 2023. And then there's some additional stuff in 2023 that we need to address to be compliant with the OREG, but it's not till July 1st of 2024. So we need to complete it in 2023 as well. I figured there's some efficiencies when we onboard the consultant that we just tackle both of those at the same time instead of splitting them apart and trying to complete it in the first 6 months of 2024. I will leave it with council if you have any questions, but pretty insignificant from a budgetary perspective.
Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Candace, when it comes to that asset management plan, you mentioned there may be some funding streams available. What's your best opinion on whether there will be anything available or not?
Traditionally, we see the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, so FCM is the one that traditionally comes out with an asset management funding stream. Haven't seen anything for 2023 yet. If we do see it, I suspect probably half would be funded.
Okay, and if I can just ask a second question, Mayor, and that would be mostly just for resourcing to assist putting it all together?
Yeah, so it would be for consulting services. So we would put out an RFP or an RFQ, depending. And then traditionally, we've seen Watson and Associates, which you've seen them come and present to council before, or maybe Citywide, which is our financial. So they handle our asset management software. So they sometimes put in a proposal as well. So we would have to take a look at whatever the best proposal was to get us through the next stages. So asset management is managed under the Treasurer's Department. So I oversee all asset management on a day-to-day basis and all of that software on a day-to-day basis. But when it comes to full comprehensive updates to the entire asset base as a whole, traditionally it's been completed by a consultant instead of in-house. To be honest with you, we don't have the staffing capacity to take on a project of that magnitude in-house. It literally would be probably a full-time position for four months.
Okay, and if I can, sorry, one more. Maybe just explain to anybody that is watching what kind of is involved with putting together the asset management plan, so people just really have a really true understanding of what this project entails.
Okay, so asset management. So asset management is, I guess, to break it down, is managing our assets. So all of our assets, everything that is worth $5,000 or more is given an asset ID. And that asset ID and all of the components that are involved in that asset, such as cost, such as the manufacturer's name, such as warranty, such as its current condition, and the most important piece of asset is its life expectancy.
Life expectancy, yeah.
So if an asset is worth $100,000, it's going to last 10 years, then it depreciates $10,000 a year. So in theory, in order to manage that asset, what the municipality should do is put in a reserve $10,000 a year for the entire life expectancy of that asset to be able to just replace it out of a reserve at the end of it. That obviously isn't financially possible, or we would probably have to see like a 25% tax rate increase in order to be able to do that. So we manage assets based on priority. So traditionally, back in 2013, when the province mandated asset management, everything was based on age. So we entered all of our assets into this massive database that has thousands and thousands of assets. And then it spits out a report by category. So water, wastewater, storm, facilities, parks, recreation, roads, gravel versus hardtop, stormwater, transfer station, bridges, and dams all have their own categories within the asset management. And they all had an age attached to it. So it would tell you, okay, that asset is supposed to last 25 years. So then when it starts to approach its end of its useful life, then its rating changes in the system, and it would go from very good to fair to poor to very poor to critical. And then, so as we start highlighting an asset as it enters fair. So once it enters that fair range, we know that very quickly it's going to start to go poor, and then it seems to just all of a sudden become critical very, very quickly. But what we have learned is that age is only a very small portion of the story. Condition is actually the bigger part. Getting condition data on assets is a bit challenging in some categories and very easy in others. So for instance, council is aware that we have a wastewater sanitary main inspection program. Every 4 years, we do a quarter of the village. So we send down cameras into the sanitary mains, we take a look at it, and we get a report. Every single main gets a condition rating that gets uploaded into our asset management. So I can tell you that there's certain mains that are in the ground, and it all comes back to whether they were installed properly or not, that would maybe say should have lasted 50 years. We only get 30 of it. It's got geysers, it's shooting water, we've got infiltration like crazy. But then we'll see other mains that have been in the ground 50 years and are still in fair condition. So just absolutely tagging an asset with an age and basing all of your infrastructure needs on it is poor management to a certain degree. Yeah. So we take into account age, condition, and then obviously the financials of the corporation. So that is really, when residents ask, I was literally just asked this a month ago, why did you resurface Queen Street? Why? Queen Street looked great. Why would you put a microsurface layer on top of Queen? Well, a couple of reasons. One, if we didn't, we were going to lose the asset. It looks great today. We don't surface it. The condition of that asset rated in our asset management plan that's mandated by the provincial government is going to state that that asset now is going to go to poor. What does that mean? It has to be pulverized and repaved instead of coated. So the goal is to be proactive and catch that street before it hits the poor condition rating in the asset management plan based on condition. Plus the storm infrastructure underneath it, there were some sinkholes on Queen Street that was identified as critical. So in order to get to that, we're not going to go in and replace the critical storm sinkholes on Queen without resurfacing the street. There's always a bigger story. And Councillor Walsh, I'm so grateful that you asked this question, because asset management is a huge piece of financials of what we do in a day-to-day. And it's very difficult to get all residents to really understand and comprehend the complexity of it. And you guys as councillors, you even dabble in it like 2 or 3 times a year. It's very, very challenging for you guys to get an overarching, full comprehensive understanding of exactly what asset management is. So our plan was done in 2016. Full comprehensive update was completed back then. We've done annual and biannual updates to that plan since 2016. There's been changes, 3 sets of OREG changes since that time. So the full plan has to be updated. We've come leaps and bounds in regards to infrastructure. There is a requirement from the provincial government that we do have an asset management plan in place and that we respect it through the budgetary process. We just don't arbitrarily pick assets and decide that it should be upgraded, replaced, or receive some sort of financial contribution. There's a process, and it's called asset management.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Very thorough explanation.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I believe, Candace, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but some townships almost went broke with their assets because they didn't manage them properly at all.
No, asset management is a key to any successful township.
Yes. Councillor Ward, please.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor. Yes, very detailed asset management plan. I was going to ask about, how much we could use from the previous one, but seeing that it was 2016, that is a long time. So I can see how the overhaul needs to be done, especially with the new regs, the OREGs that were in place. What I did see under advertising and promotion, I see that we still do the community press advertising. And so what do we put in that ad every week? Because, it's one of those things that not everyone in the township gets that paper. So I was just wondering what kind of advertising is done in the community press, and is there any other options that are available, just so people know?
Thank you for the question. So in the last 5 years or so, there's been a pretty heavy uptake in the amount of communication that we put out to the residents. In the last 5 years, we added the community press ad, we added community boards, we added social media, we added surveys to really try to engage our residents. And during that time, when we decided to put that communications plan in place, there was some research done. Obviously, as we all know, we all lost our community local newspapers. And so we needed to find the newspaper that had the largest distribution. So there is not one newspaper that will actually hit every household in our township. It doesn't exist. I believe the last time we checked, it would take 3 to be able to hit every household. The community press hits the largest number. So in order to put our resources in there, it gets the most. Things that we advertise in there, employment opportunities, upcoming events. We try to put the library events in there as well. If the library events, any committee and board events that are coming up, any tender RFPs, it says in our procurement policy that we will advertise those by newspaper. So instead of paying, it is cheaper for us to do it and have that weekly ad and utilize those opportunities to advertise employment and procurement opportunities, and for our committees and boards to utilize it versus doing one-off ads for all of those opportunities all the time. Those are really the highlights. So anything that's going on, tax bills are due, please set up for pre-auth. Any newsletters are out, annual report card, things like that. So it isn't a big space, and we try to cram as much in there as possible. But again, not all of our residents are tech savvy, and so it's really important for us to ensure we have that print media check mark in that box and in the community press. So if we were to want to hit every household with a print media, then we would have to research the other 2 opportunities, and I suspect probably double that budget.
Oh, yeah.
No, and thank you for that explanation, because I think a lot of people don't realize why we don't utilize other papers as well. And you can see just from the cost of just that one ad weekly, it would add up very quickly using 2 or 3 other newspapers resources. So thanks for that.
Oh, my pleasure.
Comments, questions, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Just looking at the salary and wages line, and certainly we are a growing community, and the workload for staff and management, as all of us sitting around this table knows, is growing. And should we be looking at increasing that line just in case? There's certainly been some discussions about those staff members with multiple roles, and perhaps have to hiring some more staff for management positions. So I'm just wondering if we should take a look at that line. And this isn't going to happen overnight by any stretch, but it may be something that we have to look at through the 2020 through 2023 year. So just a question for our CAO and perhaps some feedback from other council members as well.
Candace?
In the draft, so a couple of things from my perspective, from an administrator perspective, that I would like to see in place prior to assigning budgetary dollars to it, would be to have that decision made as to a plan in place, and whether that's a mini organizational review that takes a look at the administrative side of the township. Because to me, anything outside of that would feel reactive. And there is some opportunity within the organizational structure to separate potentially some roles that were originally created for efficiencies purposes. Whether the time has come to address that and take a look at that should potentially be a conversation through an organizational review. The organizational review to me doesn't have to be complete like the entire township. Obviously, we're not that big, but, and we can maybe even do it internally, but there needs to be a hard look as to what's in the best interest. And is it separating the managerial roles, or is it adding additional supports underneath it? So there is a bigger conversation here. But the draft administration budget, to me, you do that exercise during the budget year, and then you propose it in the next year's budget. To me, that's, and unless something happens in the interim that you can't plan for, then you can't predict everything in budget. So it would be outside of budgetary costs, and you'd have to take a look at it then. But I don't really know at this stage of the game, without having done that exercise or having been directed to complete that exercise, how we have an educated conversation on it, to be honest.
Yeah. Excuse me. And just to follow up, no, that's good to know, because I wasn't sure of the process there. And when was the last time a review like that was done? It certainly wasn't this term of council. I just didn't know if you were aware, or if the mayor was aware of when that was done.
2016.
2016. Okay.
2016, and we might as well deal with the elephant in the room and where this is headed. 2016 is what amalgamated my role. So the organization, the organizational review that was completed in 2016 by a third party. It was completed by an outside consulting servicing company. They come in and they made the recommendation to combine this role. What that did is it opened up the opportunity to build in administrative supports underneath, because we were, from the consultant's perspective, back then we were management heavy. So there was a separate CAO, there was a separate clerk, there was a separate treasurer. When you take a look at the full-time equivalent of the complement 10 years ago to what we have now that's funded by the tax base, it's the exact same. The organizational structure is different. The labels and the position titles are different. And you see an increase, as you heard me say, in the building department, which is funded by the building department revenues. So what is actually funded by the tax base in full-time equivalents in the municipal office is the exact same. It's just a different complement. So we highlighted different gaps. So we have part-time positions where every position before was full-time, and it was all separated out. I am not even convinced, sitting here, even with the growth, that this municipality needs, or that it would be efficient, or it's in the best interest to have a full-time CAO, a full-time clerk, and a full-time treasurer. I do believe we're still of a size to have a combination role of some sort. Because I mean, you see it, that's not unusual. It is unusual to see the three titles together. They do exist across the province. I am not the only one in the province of Ontario. They do exist. But definitely more prominent in the northern parts of the province. But I think you'd have to take a look as an organizational review. I can tell you there is huge efficiencies in this combination title. You really see it on a management team or going into a meeting. I can go into a meeting and we can look at the finances and decide whether it goes on an agenda and decide on the strategic direction, and the manager doesn't have to meet with three people to get a decision. They meet with one, and that's why we've been able to accomplish as much as we've been able to accomplish. We're highly efficient, and it saves the taxpayers a lot of money. A lot of money.
And I
well
do
over $1 million over 5 years. Yeah.
And I do agree with that, with the efficiencies. I certainly agree, but I think it was just something that had been discussed in the past, and I just wasn't sure of the process in taking a look at it. So it's something that this council and future council, depending on what we see around the table, I think it's a good idea to have this knowledge, because not every one of us was sitting around that table at the time it was done. So I just wasn't sure of the process, but I definitely agree. A lot of money has been saved. I think we're all very aware of that. And that was all I had to say. So thank you for answering that.
Yeah, thank you. I just wish we could just blast it out there just to let people know that, like, when we amalgamated that one job or three jobs into one in the last savings, it was like $1.2 million worth of savings right off the bat, like over time here. It's like in the last 6 years, basically it's been that much. And then downsizing from Aqua that we had there, the amount of savings that came from that. I mean, like just different things that happened back when we had a review as to where we could save the taxpayers' money was just amazing. But the key behind all that was getting the right people in the place in order to do the job. And that's where you have to emphasize that it's a team that's working for the taxpayer out there, and we're getting it in dividends big time because every department has a reserve, and it's never happened like that before. So it's just huge what's happened for our township. Councillor Ward, you have your hand up, please.
Yes, thank you through you. Further to that conversation, so it has been since 2016 since that last review was done. Would there be any, would you have any idea how much a review would cost to do an organizational review once again? Because it is 6 years. So, you know, I'm just wondering if you would have any idea of how much something like that would cost.
It would all depend on how much of the organization you wanted to include in it. If it was just administration, if it was the management team as a whole, if it was the entire organization, if it was the entire organization, probably 50,000. You really can't get much consulting done or any comprehensive report that takes a lot of interviews, in-depth discussions, especially on-site stuff now. Really for anything less than 30. You're not going to see anything for less than 30. If you could get it without going over 50, then you're probably right in the ballpark, I would suspect, for an organization of our size. But again, without doing the procurement, I'm not 100% sure.
Well, and that was the second part was like a timeline. If something like this was to be put in a future budget, like what would the timeline to be able to have something like a review done? Like what kind of timeline would it look like? Any idea?
Well, if you procure it, you could probably secure it and have it done in 6 months.
Okay.
Like you do the procurement, you do the, you take a look at it. Yeah, I would say 6 months.
Okay. And thank you. And I think it is valid to point out the savings. Like people don't realize the savings in the last 6 years that have been involved. But, you know, sometimes a private look or, you know, somebody looking in from the outside might give some more insight of different savings now. So I think it was a good comment by Deputy Mayor Burt. So thank you.
Just another comment there. The market salary review. We had one there not that long ago for salaries, right? Like 2020, 2021, something like that, I believe. Just so we didn't create a, I forget the word now. We didn't want to have pay equity.
Pay equity, yeah.
Yeah.
Pay imbalance, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So that's what I'm just wondering if like we did that already, and that helped with council's wages and one thing after another too. So I do believe that we're, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're around the 50th percentile anyways, or a little high, a little low in some places as to how staff are getting paid now anyways, I believe. Am I correct in saying that?
The market salary review was completed, new salary bands approved by council in 2021.
Yeah.
It is recommended by the Pay Equity Commission of the Province of Ontario that is completed around every 5-6 years to ensure that you don't create a pay equity imbalance. So all of the salaries and all of the salary bands that are currently in play were recommended by a third party consultant that created the evaluation matrix and presented the salary bands to council, and they are based on the job descriptions and the responsibility levels of each position. The market and what the township pays is in alignment.
Right. So I just asking council, like when you talk organizational review, is that like, were you looking at seeing if our wages were fair or equitable, or just looking at trying to revamp how the township's being looked after right now, or how everybody's categorized? I just want a clarification, basically.
I guess the question that I was asking Roger is, given the growth and the workload that comes into the township, is more staff required? That was kind of my baseline question, and then we kind of mushroomed from there. So
Right.
no, because that the wage was done recently. No, it didn't have anything to do with the wages.
Okay. Nope, that's great. That's what I just wanted clarification on that for sure, just to see where we're heading there. Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns on this report then, please? Seeing no hands, then for R10 draft administration budget, the recommendation then is for information at this time. Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor War. All in favor? And that's carried. All right. I just wondering if we could just take a 5-minute recess for a minute here. I just need a break for a minute here. We need a motion there to have a recess at 3:49 for 5 minutes, if that's okay. Motion by Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? That's great. So just mute yourself off and black your screen if you want for a minute, and we'll be right back. Okay, thanks. Okay, Council, if we could have everyone come back. Thank you for that. With these trying times, with how you're feeling, sometimes you just got to step away for a few minutes here. So the time's 3:53. I guess I don't need a motion to come back in. I do. Okay. I need a motion to come back into open session again, then please. Motion by Councillor War, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, the next one would be R11, the management action list. Candace, please.
Yes, so what you see in front of you is what's coming up for October. As of right now, there's only two more council meetings that are scheduled and on the docket for this complement of council due to the election, and this term is coming to a close. So what you see is what's coming up for October, and then there is another council meeting November 8th. So continuing on with draft budgets. Hopefully we had an inspection in the Norwood drinking water. Hopefully we have those results. There's been a tower proposed down in Birdsall River Road. You guys have seen that package before, but they have moved it. So you'll see that again. Employee benefit package, and then Westwood Cemetery update.
That's okay. So we have that package in front of us there, unless there's anything that's added extra to it. Councillor War, yes?
Yes, I was just wondering if there was going to be another update about the library well, the Westwood Library well, if that would also be coming forward at another time. An update with that.
Yes. I already have an update, just don't have it in a staff report. But I can give you a verbal update during my CIO list.
Any other comments, questions, concerns about the management action list at this time? Seeing no hands, then we'll accept the report as presented, then please. Motion by Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Wolf. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, there's no correspondence for action. Council liaison reports. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say verbal today? Okay, Councillor Walsh first, then please.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. Back on September the 10th, the Special Projects Committee executed the Showcase Asphodel-Norwood in support from township staff. Very well-attended event. We figure between 200 to 250 residents attended Showcase Asphodel-Norwood this year. So lots of activities for all ages of people. It was well organized. It was nice to see new residents out at it. Touch a truck outside, Paw Patrol. We had the school there, some new businesses there. It really was an all-encompassing to see lots of businesses and organizations out, and a great crowd out as well. So just encouraging when we run these events that we get really good engagement from the community.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Walsh. I found it a lot more inviting being in a smaller venue than it was out on the ice surface, I have to admit. So thank you very much for that, you and your committee. Anyone else? Councillor War, yes, please.
Yes, thank you through you. And I have sent this report off to, or this review off to Melanie, so she has it in, she doesn't have to write fast or anything. So with ORCA, which is the Ottawa Regional Conservation Authority, please, if anyone hasn't, take the time to read the watershed news report that was in C1. It really does highlight many of the activities and programs that ORCA supports. Second, Culture and Heritage Committee. We are underway with the packing up at the Heritage Center located in Westwood. We've had 2 packing dates now because new flooring is being installed at the Heritage Center the first week of November. the last time on the one day, we had 2 volunteer firefighters also join us to help us. But I'm asking for everyone here at the council table to help us. We are a small group, and it's going to be an impossible task unless I ask our fellow council table to perhaps help. Brenda Bullock, who's the chair of the committee, she's going to send out some dates with some packing dates. And if any of you would like to join us, please do. And we hesitate to do a call out for volunteers because of workman's compensation, liabilities. I don't know if that Candace could speak to that, but anyways, I'm asking you at the table, if anybody could help us, I would appreciate it. And the second part of that is with the CHC. We've recently had a request from the Norwood Legion Branch 300 to help research local war veterans, because they plan to put up banners commemorating those of service. And so we do have a smaller section of war history and information. And Brenda will coordinate that with the Norwood Legion to complete that. I think it's so important. They look so beautiful in other communities that have put them up. And the last one, we want to encourage everyone to participate in the Scarecrow Challenge. As you know, this idea was pitched by Robert Gordon as a committee member for the Heritage Committee. And our committee looks forward to seeing all the fall displays as this event has evolved. I want to thank township staff for continuing to be able to put this on, because without it being taken in-house, it would not have continued over the past 2 years. So the ANCHC, we will also have a display at the Norwood Fair. And in November, we will have a historical gathering and our speaker will be announced. So anyways, that's my update on my committee reports, and I look forward to any comments.
Thank you. Council, any comments, questions to Councillor Moore? All right, seeing no hands, then we'll move on. Next would be the CEO clerk's treasurer's list, then please, Candace.
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple of things. Some construction updates for council. There has been some questions in regards to sidewalks throughout the community. I had a productive conversation yesterday.
What was that? Sounds like somebody's tea kettle blew up. I know, I jumped out of my seat.
Or a very big Roomba vacuum.
Yeah.
That's all right, you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. I guess perks of zooming from your husband's space and an air compressor just came on. Anyway, so I apologize for that. My heart's working good. So sidewalks. So I had a productive conversation with the contractor. They are mobilizing to site late next week. So Elm Street, the Highway 7 replacement, and Albine Street. All 3 jobs will be completed prior to them leaving the village. So that is Albine Street. As a reminder, it's to restore kind of those areas and to install the sidewalk from Marion Lane to County Road 40. That section only at this point in time. Yeah. So those 3 sections will be completed. I did confirm, and basically demanded that Cedar Street is open prior to Thanksgiving weekend. I did receive that confirmation. There will be no road closures in the village of Norwood prior to Thanksgiving weekend if I have to open them myself. So the Cedar Street will not be paved. It will be, obviously, there's not enough, it won't be completed and then asphalted, but it will be open. It will be gravel graded, calciumed, and definitely good for vehicular traffic. That project is coming to a close. They were able to make the tedious connection on Highway 7. It was a bit of a interesting couple of days there, but we were able to make the connection and kind of get out of the bank. So they're going to restore that bank on the north side of Highway 7 as they go. So things are getting sewn up there, but it won't be completely completed prior to Thanksgiving weekend, but really doesn't matter as long as there's no road closures. The sidewalks at the town hall has been an ongoing conversation. Obviously, council is aware that we are unhappy with the workmanship of the walkways at the town hall, and it is has been a warranty claim that was submitted. They have advised us that they will be on site to rip up those walkways and restore them prior to Thanksgiving. They are to mobilize next week. As far as a date, we're not 100% sure. We asked them to please not just show up to site without any prior notice. That said, we'll have to get something out to their user groups once we have some sort of more nailed down idea of when they're coming. But obviously it's very soon if it's going to be sewn up before Thanksgiving. The Square Crow Roadshow. So there's 29 registered, just to follow up with Councillor Warsing. As of right now, there's 29 families on the roadshow to participate as of today. We had 34 people show up to make scarecrows at the workshop last Friday, and 20 scarecrows were made. So that is great news. I would also like to just share my screen here. Just give me a sec. I want to show you guys something. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, so what you're looking at is we finally got the equipment layout essentially for the fitness center and what the fitness center is going to look like. Now that the equipment supplier has been determined, the amount of equipment has been determined, the electrical components of all of that has been determined. I did receive this morning, but what I've asked for is a cleaner version that we could put up on the website and the socials that are a little more user friendly, because obviously there's a lot of detail in this drawing that wouldn't be of interest to the general public, but I will kind of walk you guys through it a little bit. So can you guys see my cursor over here to the right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you will see that this is the entrance into it. So the new vestibule will come out here with the wooden trellis architectural feature going here. You will enter into the fitness area here, and what you're going to see, this is a coat area, so there will be a bench, some hooks, etc. As well as if you turn to the right, this is utility. This utility does bump into the canteen, as I believe we've discussed this at council before. It bumps into here, but staff will, instead of having to go out all the way around, they will be able to come through the canteen through this utility. It'll be one way only. People who utilize this space aren't going to be able to obviously go the other way. So we are losing some space in the canteen because in the 2023 budget, we are going to be proposing to get rid of all those little plug-in freezers. There's little plug-in freezers everywhere back there in that canteen space. We need one stand-up freezer. So that's going to be able to claw back some of that space that's lost to be able to adjoin the two utility rooms, but it is going to be a joint purpose space. As you continue to walk, and this is going to kind of be a corridor, so you come in, you walk in, and then you go in right to the women's change space. So there's 2 stalls, a couple of washrooms. It's all accessible, a couple of change rooms. These are all lockers. This is like an island for like a seating island, it's called. There's a universal washroom and change room, gender neutral or for families. The men's change area, it doesn't quite exactly mirror the women's, but pretty close. This is a little janitor closet here. that you can see. So that's going to be like wash basin, like little vacuum, you know, things like that for cleaning. This is the space right here, the door. This is the studio space in here. So these little things here are just basically mimicking yoga mats. But this is the studio space. So this is going to be all mirrored on this side, on the inside. This is going to be a bar for bar classes. And then this is, you'll see add storage unit in here because we're having some conversation about being able to store bikes if there's ever a spin class held in here. There will be a large TV on the wall here for people to have virtual classes. So you can be able to go in and host a virtual class in this space as well. Then obviously the main fitness area is here. So there is a list of equipment that we're going to include. Obviously, this is like a universal. Here, this is the squat rack. So then you'll see treadmills. I believe this is a rower. This is weightlifting. This is a bench, free weights. And then there's some ellipticals and bikes in here. Pretty much has everything that you could possibly need in a fitness center. Like there's not a piece of equipment that's missing. I have asked for the electrical configuration now that we've figured out what the pieces of equipment are. We did ask for the, I did ask for us to have two options. So the layout as you see here, and then I want to be able to move the treadmills. So we're going to have plugs in the floor in another location. One moment. So that we can, as we get up and running, if it's in place for 5 years and we want another option to be able to move the space around to revitalize it or refreshen it, we have the ability to do that instead of being handcuffed by electrical outlets. There's also going to be some feature walls. So this wall over here that divides the studio space is going to be a feature wall. And what that means is, so it'll be painted probably a light color, and then there'll be like in 3D black letters, words such as, I don't know, strength, motivation in different fonts and different sizes, like just a feature wall. There'll be TVs in here as well, in this space that streamline out into the ice surface, as well as anything else. I mean, it doesn't have to, if there's something going on the ice, then it can have other things. Excuse me. The vestibule will all have new flooring that matches throughout. It still will only have one set of doors going in. I think that's important to realize. Yeah, and so I just received, because we just got all the electrical layout completed. So I just wanted to provide it to council. So once I get a cleaner version, I'm hoping really soon that maybe isn't quite so busy, that we can get it uploaded to the website and social media. So we did greatly reduce the size of the washroom since the last time you guys have seen this. So I will get that sent out. And if you guys have any questions or thoughts or concerns, please let me know. The exterior of the building obviously is going to mimic the Millennium Room on the other side. We can't get that blue upper siding anymore. You know, that upper part that's the vertical siding that's blue. It's proposed by the architect. They proposed to make that black and to match it on the existing, and then do like black doors and that sort of thing. So if council, if you have any concerns with utilizing and changing it from blue to black, please let me know, because now would be the time to do so. We're going to see the color board is going to be dropped off at the municipal office this week to look at colors of lockers, paint chips for paint and flooring and that sort of thing. So I'll let you guys know when it's there. And if you want to pop into the office to take a look and give your opinion, that would be lovely. Any questions on the fitness center at all?
That's all. Anyone?
The layout?
Councilor Walsh, please.
Candace, and I know it's still early, but any idea of timing? Like, are things going as they kind of planned? Or are we seeing more delays? Any ETA on when they could be done?
And we're hoping for ribbon cutting in January.
Okay, cool.
That's the goal. So very, very exciting times. Very exciting.
Awesome.
So no, that could be February, but it'll be early in the new year for sure.
Any other questions, comments, concerns at this time? There was a question about the color, council, for the black. Councillor Ward, please.
I think it's a good comment that if you can't get the color that that was existing, I think matching it to whatever color is put on now, it's a wise decision now to go ahead with that color that the architect or planner has decided. I think that's a good option. My own comment only.
Yep. Good. Anyone else at this time? Okay, very good. Anything else, Candace, on your list?
Yep. I just have one more thing, and it's the Asphodel third line. So I don't know if council remembers, we had some struggles procuring a contractor to complete the surface works on that project within budget. We were able to do so, and we entered into a contract with Miller Paving for them to complete the scope of work by September 23rd. They did not fulfill that obligation and are in breach of contract. So the manager of public works and I have significant concerns with moving forward in this calendar year with the resurfacing of that road for a couple of reasons. One, ideally to get the best surfacing completion, 15 degrees for 3 weeks, 15 degrees and above for 3 weeks is, I mean, that's ideal conditions. We have placed surface treat without that and been just fine before, but ideally that's what you want to see. We are nowhere going to even remotely even close to see that at this point in time. Our concern is that if the contractor believes that the temperature is fine and moves forward and completes the scope of work, and then the road fails, next year we're into warranty conversations, and based on some discussions with our neighbors that are currently in that exact same situation where they rolled the dice with the temperature and they haven't been able to be successful with a warranty claim, I am concerned with moving forward, and considering that the contractor breached the contract by not having it complete by September 23rd, the township has the out to be able to take the out to ensure that it's installed in the appropriate temperatures. They decided to go up and do a job up north. It takes them 2 weeks, so they're up north completing a job up there prior to completing the work that they had committed to in Peterborough County. So they are stating that they may be able to be here by mid to late next week. But again, there's rain, and every time there's a rain day, it pushes them out a day. So our concern is it will be so far out the temperature window. The road has been prepped for surface treatment. The granular has been added, it has been graded. That said, it would just have to be regraded prior to surface treatment next year. We wouldn't have to add more product. That's been done. It would just have to be regraded to ensure that it gets the appropriate fall, et cetera, next year. So I just wanted to discuss that with council. If you have any comments or concerns or wish to adopt a motion otherwise, then I suspect we should do that in general business. Outside of that, I don't have, I believe that's it for today, Mayor.
Right. You talked about the well possibly at the library.
Yeah, so I know the investigative work is complete. There has been a solution found in regards to it, and I believe we got something from their engineer that they believe that there's sufficient recover and restore to satisfy the needs of the library. However, it may be prudent to monitor seasonally to ensure static levels rise. That said, we're waiting for the formal report and formal communication from Peterborough Public Health that I suspect will be on your next council agenda.
Thank you. So any questions, comments? Or CAO, clerk, treasurer, deputy mayor Burt, please.
Thank you, through you. Just about the third line. So if that work is not undertaken this fall, coming next spring, next summer for the work to be complete, does the tender that has been approved and accepted at this point carry over, or will that be another retender? It will be another retender. Okay. And all right.
Would have to be another retender, and it would be included in the 2024 or 2023 surfacing. I'm already a year ahead in my brain and budget. That's ridiculous. See, 2023 is already done for me. So the 2023 surface treatment budget. So I suspect it'll be pulled in with more.
Okay.
With more projects that are going to be added next year. We have to prep the 8th line based on the surface treatment plan, prepping the 8th line. I know there's some conversations as to why and how we decide what roads are surface treated. So maybe be a good opportunity to explain. So climate change, I mean, all of us have noticed that the springs have been brutal. The freeze, thaw, and rain kills our gravel roads. We own one grader. To replace that grader is about anywhere to $500,000 to $600,000. And we have one seasoned grader operator for a complement of 6 staff. The ability to stay on top of the gravel roads and provide a level of service without having the expense of adding a second grader and a second operator is to ensure that the complement of gravel roads are sustainable throughout climate change and throughout what Mother Nature has been dishing us, because it's a lot different than what she dished us 20 years ago. So probably about 4 years ago, the manager of public works at the time and myself came to this very quick realization that it is not sustainable with one grader operator, and the level of service that the residents expect for potholes, for a smooth travelable surface. So in order to do that, the only way to then take a look at it is to take a look at our connecting links that are already surface treated. That are main traveled roads so prime example is the 3rd line that connects Highway 7 to Westwood, and then is already surface treated on the south side of center line. It's a connecting link. We send the grader out there. Now that center line is paved, the grader goes all the way out there for that one section of road when it's not needed on center line. It's not needed on the 3rd line south. It's not needed in Westwood. It's not needed on County Road 38. So think about where then it's needed. And the graders don't travel across the road at any high speed. So it was for operational efficiencies to be able to sustain climate change with one grader. So in order to be able to move past that, there would be the conversation and a review as to whether we would need to add a second grader, because the springs, we just can't take it. Like the freeze thaws are ridiculous. So the 8th line was another identified portion, because obviously it's paved up so far past the commercial properties there, and then it goes on again. So just closing yet another gap. So, there's not a lot of them, but there is some low hanging fruit there where in the surface treatment plan, we've decided to fill in some gaps. And then that takes the pressure off the grader, and Centerline Road obviously was huge. And that allows that grader to, we can prioritize and ensure that the level of service remains the same. So there's a conversation that we haven't had around the council table for a while. So thank you, Deputy Mayor Burt, for that question.
And can I just have a follow-up? With the breach of contract with Miller Paving, are there any penalties, or is this just something to keep in mind for when contracts go out again?
So basically, as of right now, the only known legal avenue we have, and we include it in all of our contract, is liquidated damages. So liquidated damages is a daily rate that gets applied to every day that the contract goes outside of the negotiated completion date. So from after September 23rd, say, this isn't the figure, but say it's $1,000 a day. So every day it goes beyond the contract end date, it's $1,000 a day. To enforce liquidated damages is exceptionally challenging, because you have, as a municipality, to fight that in court or legally, we have to have had to incur $1,000 worth of expense to offset getting that money from the contractor. So the only way that I've ever been successful on it is when I've had to pay for additional inspection or engineering or consulting. So say an engineer had to be on site then because the contractor was in default and there was delays, then obviously we would have to prove that. And then that money was reimbursed. Maybe it's only $400 a day. Maybe it was only, so to just simply get the $1,000 a day isn't really heard of. The other loophole that they have is Mother Nature. So if we get into a court of law and it's rained 15 out of the 30 days that contract's been in place, legally we have to add 15 days to that contract. And then to track all of that. So so to answer your question, no, there is nothing that we can do for the breach of contract. All we can do is, we can move forward, but I would prefer that the third line, when it does get done, that we don't have, and the risk of failure is exceptionally low and all the balls are in our court. That we've done everything right. And if it still fails, then it's the contractor's problem that isn't based on any decision that we made at the township level.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's great. Yeah, the other thing I just wanted to make as a comment for microsurfacing and one thing after another and tar and chip and whatever is not only is it savings with the grader, it's savings with our gravel too, because it's our gravel that we're using from our own pit. So like that resource could end one day, and it is expensive to have that gravel crushed every year too, to maintain our side roads for sure. So the more that we can do and the more that we can hard surface to a certain extent, just is going to save the taxpayers money more in the long run for sure anyway. So thank you. Okay, anything else, Candace? Okay, so we'll move on then into general business now. So in general business, I guess Councillor Ward, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. I do have one thing. This Friday, I don't know if anyone would like to tune in to listen, because I think maybe that's the most important thing, is that on September 30th, tune into the Oldies 96.7 or frequency 90.5 in Peterborough for a day of listening, a day supporting truth and reconciliation. This is supported by the Peterborough Native Learning Program, which is PNLP. And they are supporting this day of listening. And I think when it isn't a provincial holiday, this is a good opportunity for people that may be in a workplace or working from home. They can put their radio on and maybe we can all learn something for this coming Friday. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Candace, you had your hand up.
Mel, can you push that on socials if you can find something about it? Please, thank you.
Yeah, last night we learned a lesson about we don't do enough for our First Nations neighbors, that's for sure. Okay, anything else under general business right now? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
I just want to let council know that the OFA, or Federation of Agriculture, has some information out regarding council members and agriculture information, and you can access that information at ofa.on.ca/growag, GROWAG, and you might find some helpful information on there as you are knocking on doors and within the throes of the election season. It's helpful. And also, as you know, I'm on the PCFA board, and we just had a county or a District 10 election, and county resident Steve Brackenridge was elected to his third term. So that's good news. He's a very good proponent for agriculture in our county and is an active PCFA member. So I just wanted to let you know that. And that's all I have for general business at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Walsh, did you have anything?
Just one thing. I'm just circling back on the third line. Candace, do you need some direction from us in terms of basically
Yes.
stopping the construction or the paving to happen this fall, and we simply add it to next year. Unfortunately, it'll probably cost us more next year because nothing seems to be going down in cost. But on the other hand, having it done now does not seem like the right decision to make.
A couple things. It may be cheaper. The AC index is coming down.
Nice.
Cost of fuel is coming down, so the AC index is following suit. Direction of council to support deferring the resurfacing of the Thorn Light project to the 2023 calendar year or budget year would be appreciated if you so feel necessary.
I will so move that. Again, just based on the conversation today, they're not going to be here for 2 weeks. Temperature is going to be an issue. Trying to deal with warranty claims next year. If they do resurface it, can be an issue that it just kind of makes sense. Because our only added cost would be is we just have to grade that road to prep it next year, correct? So
Correct.
I'm willing to move forward on that motion to hold off till next year. On third line.
Need a seconder on that, please? Deputy Mayor Burt. Any other discussion on the motion? See no hands, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Is there anything else under general business at this time, council? Seeing no hands, then on to, there's no closed motion. There's no notice of motion that I'm aware of. And I would ask that the bylaws then be read, please, Madam Clerk.
Being a bylaw to provide for the installation of a temporary stop sign in the township of Asphodel-Norwood be read a first, second, and third time and numbered bylaw 2022-40.
Motion by Councillor War, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2009-08 as amended, being a bylaw to regulate the use of land and the use and erection of buildings and structures within the township of Asphodel-Norwood be read a first, second, and third time and numbered bylaw 2022-41.
Motion by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried.
Being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood held September 27, 2022 be read a first, second, and third time and numbered bylaw 2022-42.
Motion by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor War. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So now I'll ask for a motion then to adjourn this meeting at 4:30 exactly. Today, September 27th, 2022, and our next meeting will be October 3rd, 2022, or at the call of the chair.
I have a,
Yes, go ahead.
after the motions on the floor, before it's carried, I have a question.
Sure. Okay, Deputy Mayor Burt, I seen your hand. Seconded by. Second for that, Councillor War, and discussion. You had something you want to bring up, Candace?
Yeah, so just as a reminder, the October 3rd is the road tour. And I haven't, if you have any places that you definitely would like to see physically with township staff, I do ask that you send them to me ASAP, please and thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Just need to have it carried then, please. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. That was a big meeting. Candace, get some hot tea into you there, and everyone stay safe, and thank you very much for your time today. Bye for now.